Yes, we're on. Hey,
Rob.
hello, everybody. Hey, YouTube land. We're here. Now, it's taken me ages to try and get this sorted. I was supposed to be on at 8 o'clock, and I notice it's 27 minutes past 8. So there you are. That's how clever. And here we have Delboy. Yes,
Ah,
Delboy's here joining me on this wonderful stream, he says. Hopefully,
it's very
everything.
nice to be here, Ian, and it's 8 o'clock somewhere. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah,
It's all timey wimey wibbly wobbly. How's that?
that's it.
There's a
And
link.
there's a link behind you that might just explain that. Yes, old timey whiny. Yes, wonderful. So, anybody's got any questions about anything? Old bugger questions for us. You can talk about anything you want. Anything. It doesn't have to be movies. Just anything. Obviously, nostalgia plays a big part in everything we do. Yes.
Very much so. Well,
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question then, Ian.
Yeah.
Other than what you've broadcast and sort of like future put on your website, what have you been watching this week? Have you
What have I been
been
watching
watching
now?
anything?
Yeah, I watched The Martian Chronicles. I finally got round to watching it. Yeah. And wow, what can I say about The Martian Chronicles? It's very much it's just really good. I don't because I remember I had vague memories of it because it's
Yeah.
one of those that was going back a long way, 1980, and that's it. I haven't seen anything from it, and it was just an amazing series. I was surprised how good Rock Hudson was. I never really knew him much as an actor. He was more famous for getting AIDS and coming out as gay, wasn't he? I mean, that was all the thing when he died.
When I think back, I'm not quite sure whether he'd actually admitted to the world that he was gay. And I don't think he'd actually admitted to the world as well that he had AIDS. I think that came a little bit later on because he died quite suddenly. I think it
Yeah,
was within 6 months of him announcing. But what I remember about the Martian Chronicles is a little bit like you.
yeah,
It was in 3 parts on the BBC
yeah,
over a bank holiday weekend, and it was on
yeah.
it was on something like a Saturday, a Sunday, and ending on the
Yes,
Monday or something
yeah,
like that. And automatically, everybody, the first thing all they mentioned about was the special effects are nothing special. They look like Airfix models,
oh,
but it never really bothered me
yeah,
because when I think of that introduction and you see the little LEM vehicle that
yeah,
lands on Mars,
yeah,
there's that voiceover that says just exactly what I was always thinking, saying, "Look, some people said, what's the chance of finding anybody on Mars?" And the skeptics always turned around and said, "Look, an alien ship could land on the Earth and land in the Gobi Desert. We,
yeah.
for all we know, we've landed
Brilliant.
probably just a mile away from alien life." And then it pans
Yeah,
sort of slightly up, and you see an
yeah,
alien landscape in the background, and then the
yeah,
music starts. And from that moment on, I was thinking, "Wow, this is going to be thought provoking."
yeah. And it's interesting because some bits were quite comedic as well. That's a
Yeah,
bit of a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
surprise. Like the girl that with the all about her looks and everything, and the scenes like that, which are really funny. And yeah, and then it goes esoteric. So you've got quite a mixture of styles
Oh
coming
yeah.
together, which it makes it interesting. And we've got some right. So let me just see. We've got some comments here. Um, right, Luke's film unboxings. Hello, Ian. Hope they will release Carry On Volume 4 on Blu-ray. I'm sure they will if they've been a financial success. They will. Personally, I've not got into buying the Blu-rays. I've got that box set and it is expensive, I think, relatively getting these volumes. So I'm sticking to that. But good luck to you if you've been buying them. And I'll say they'll carry on if they've been a success. We'll release them. But
They'll carry on carrying on. Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
carry on buying. That's it. Is that still the black and white ones on Volume 4? Have they done all the black and whites? I don't know.
You're a
They might
little
have
bit
gone
ahead.
into
You're a
colour.
little bit ahead of the game with me, Ian, because I know that there was a volume 1 and a volume 2.
Yeah.
Volume 2 had Carry On Cabby on it, which was the last, I think, black
Was
and
that the
white
last
one.
black and white one? Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure if volume 1 and volume 2, if you put them all to combine, gave you all the black and white ones,
Yeah.
because I think there was a
Didn't
colour
they
one
do
on
a
that.
colour one and then
Yeah.
go back to black and white?
They did, because Carry On
Yeah.
Spying was black and
Yeah.
white, and that came out after the
Yeah.
Bernard Cribbins one, where it was.
Yeah, actually, Carry On Spying is quite sharp. It's quite good. It's
Yeah.
got something about it. I think Carry On Spying, because
So if there is a volume 3, I wasn't aware.
yeah,
And
but I
because
know
I
that,
knew volume 1 and 2 were out. You see, I didn't know volume 3 was out.
Right. Let's see what else we've got here. We've got Wolf Game Music and Video. Greetings from Salem, Oregon. Oh, welcome.
Wow.
Welcome. Wow.
No.
Yes. Hey, Bayek. Welcome.
Is it afternoon there?
Yeah, well, yeah. Here it's as you know, it's after 8:30 with me taking a long time to get on. Yes. Yeah. Right. So yeah, well, you're welcome anyhow. If you got any questions, just put some questions down, and we'll just babble on about what else have I watched this week.
Well, yeah, what else you've watched and what your thoughts are on Carry On. I mean, I don't know what your favourite Carry On film is.
Do you know something? When I watched it, because I've been through, I did the whole box set, reviewed every Carry On film. What surprised me was how very few bad ones there were. That is quite a surprise, because you kind of get the impression that, Carry Ons, they disappeared and, they were big and then they just disappeared and faded away and were really terrible with Carry On Emmanuel. But there isn't that many really bad ones. I don't think so. I mean, there's some that are maybe not quite as have quite the weight and the spark. There's a tiredness maybe to one or two of them, but generally they're not bad, really, are they? I mean, like, for instance, I like Carry On Girls is one of the later ones. It's so funny, isn't it? And that's a later one about the beauty contest, and there's some, and that's a later one when people are saying, "Oh, it's getting tired." But even that has an originality and spark about it, and it's so funny. But I think Carry On films have been given quite a bad impression, actually, and I enjoyed all the black and white ones as well. I think the black and white ones perhaps get a bad sort of rap, because if there's one thing I don't understand is nowadays, well, I do understand why it is, but because my own son, believe it or not, it's like this: is things in black and white. Oh dear. They can't watch the thing. Why can't you watch things in black and white? I don't understand it. Can you explain why black and white is a mystery?
Yeah,
I don't understand it. There's, because if we went through life not liking things in black and white, that would be a lot of the things that we really love, like Doctor Who.
I have a laugh with my mother sometimes. She doesn't like it, but I always have a laugh with her. I usually turn around to her and said, "Mum, you remember back in the war when it was black and white? What was it? She says, "You cheeky devil, it wasn't black and white, it was colour." And I went, "Yeah, but every time I watch something on TV, it's in black and white when it's in the war." And she goes, "You stupid." And then she goes to explain to me what the television is. And I said, "I'm only having a laugh with you. I know it weren't black and white. It's,
Oh, yeah. Actually, I remember somebody having a joke and saying the world was actually in black and white, and then the 60s came and it became colour. You see, and people were going, "Oh, really? Yes. Oh, that makes sense. That's why the 60s were the swinging 60s." And you're going, "Yeah,
This is where all the weird stories come from. Like the moon is made out of cheese. If you think about it, right? When you go into space, all you see is black with white little stars. Well, that's black and white then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the world, so everything would look black and white, apart from the cockpit view that you're looking at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's how light affects us in our eye. That's
Yeah.
what gives us the color.
Yeah.
So you would probably think
Mm,
when you were in the space race days and you were going up into
yeah.
space and nobody had done it yet, that
Mm,
everything's black and white up there. Maybe color
mm.
is only on the Earth. You don't
Yeah.
know, do you? You don't
Oh
know what
no.
people were
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Imagine, have you noticed? Have you seen like when they'll have these specials like the Second World War in color,
Yeah,
and they are amazing when you watch them because you do kind of think, oh, this is like a different world, like the
yeah,
Hitler rallies and things like that.
yeah.
The colors of the Nazis and all, everything is just so different, and it adds another perspective to history, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, very much so. I
I think
mean,
so.
I do watch them. Sometimes some of the Freeview channels, like Talking Pictures and that, show half hour how the world was or something, and
Yeah, yeah,
they'll show footage, and certain other ones will have how Hitler won the war, and they'll be in
yeah,
three parts. And some of them do it all in black and white, all the footage, and other ones do show the colorized versions. And the
yeah.
other ones say this is not colorized footage, this is actual colored footage
Oh,
done at the
yeah,
time. And there
yeah.
must have been some journalists that would have had 16 millimeter color film that they recorded certain stuff at.
Mm,
But of
yeah,
course, I don't know enough of history to know anything really, because every time I saw war stuff, it was all black and white. So
yeah.
I
Mine,
could never work out whether they've colorized it with computers
yeah.
or whether it actually is footage sometimes. So,
I think
you
one of
know,
the defining moments, really, in terms of watching the Second World War, is, of course, that master documentary, isn't it? The
yeah.
Olivier narration, "The World at War." I mean, that is such a fantastic documentary series. I haven't got that. I really ought to get that sometime in collection because it's something I don't know. It's an amazing piece of television. I
Yeah.
remember watching it on the TV. People were glued to it because it was
I
something
think
really
I
special.
think this was a period of time where the BBC ruled,
Yeah,
because not only were these documentaries out there that you could actually see if you went to the cinema as well, if you went to
yeah,
certain things, they'd show
yeah,
these reels there.
yeah,
But the BBC loved its period dramas. So you'd have things like Colditz,
yeah,
you'd
yeah.
have Tenko,
Yes,
and
yeah,
and everybody was riveted, and you'd go, and I'm sure it's because it was period pieces. They had these famous actresses and actors. They all went to the BBC because that's where quality was.
yes,
ITV
yeah,
had equal quality, but it was all stuck with adverts. It was all based
that's
on
right.
what
Yeah,
money they put in from the advertising. So I think the BBC always had the upper edge when it
mm,
came to drama, because they
yeah,
always did period pieces. No matter what happened, it was, until
mm,
Brideshead Revisited came out on ITV, I think most people
yeah.
went to the BBC.
It's interesting that, to be fair to ITV, they did have quite a groundbreaking program, which was The World in Action,
Well,
half-hour
yeah,
documentary, and some of them were very, very radical pieces of television, critical of a lot of things going on in society, and they were all done in half an hour.
yeah,
And they were amazing. They were
yeah,
amazing pieces of television. We've got some more comments. Let's have a look. But I always remember that World in Action because you just sort of watched it. It was like a program to watch.
yeah.
Luke, right. Do you have a favorite doctor from Doctor Who? Well, um, I think it's no secret for me, and I think possibly with you. My favorite doctor is the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. Yes, it's always Patrick Troughton with me.
Yeah.
However, I love the classic Doctor Who so much that I can enjoy them all. up to Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor. I'll count him as a classic Doctor, even though he's in between. I do really fine chaps, aren't all of them? Yes, definitely. But that is, I mean, I've been watching again for my channel, reviewing one John Pertwee episode, one Tom Baker episode, and watching both them, you realize that it was the golden age of Doctor Who. It really was. It was something they can never emulate nowadays. They just cannot do that, what they did. There's something about it. And I was thinking what it is that they were able to write really good stories. I mean, that is obvious. And they had Robert Holmes around. Robert Holmes is an absolute genius. You know, I mean, he really is a genius. What he did for Doctor Who. No, they don't have that nowadays. With all due respect to all these, there's nobody like that. And I noticed today, I was just looking at something and I saw that in this new series of Doctor Who coming up, you know what? Russell T Davies is writing virtually every story himself, apart from, I think there was one. That doesn't sound good to me. That immediately made me went, his ego is so big now.
Yeah. Is that the one where he's introduced Steve Moffat back to do one story?
Yeah, well, he needs Steve Moffat, because at least Moffat's period as Doctor Who was better. Though it's interesting, I sounded contradictory, because for me, the best of the modern Doctors was, as I've made no secret, for me, was Christopher Eccleston. There was something about him. He was, I don't know, I wish he'd have had more, but even he saw through all the politics shenanigans going on. Anyway, that's a bit controversial, but yeah. So I'm going off there. So your favourite Doctor is Patrick Troughton as well?
Yeah, it's a well-known thing that Patrick Troughton was mine. And I think it's quite easy to understand this, because I've made no lie about it that my earliest memory is John Pertwee, right?
Yeah.
It was Planet of the Spiders, and it was the regeneration scene with what was his name, Tom Powell or whatever it was, who gave him the little push to regenerate into Tom Baker. I was only 5.
Yeah,
you have to understand from my point of view. Patrick Troughton had gone, and John Pertwee had been around for about 4 or 5 years, and Tom Baker came in. Now, even when Tom Baker was in, I was still only 5 years old. So Tom Baker was my Doctor for the longest period of time. But I'll never forget, and it's more a feeling than anything, that in my background, John Pertwee was that grandfather that I'd have loved to have met and gone in the box with and gone on some adventures. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
but my dad always told me that he used to watch it, and it used to have an actor called Patrick Troughton in, and he used to tell me all of these stories, and to a 5-year-old lad, they sounded really scary. He said, nothing was as scary, he said, as the Cybermen when Patrick Troughton was around. They scared everyone. And I turned around and say, why is that then, Dad? And he said, it's just that the way they look, they were shiny. We had black and white TV. And I said, that sounds menacing. He said, yeah, just imagine this. He said, I'm holding up this spoon, I turn the lights off, I shine a torch on this spoon. Think of that as being a Cyberman. And I went, I'm scared already.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So so for years and years and years, I had this myth of who Patrick Troughton was, because there were no repeats and there was no VHS recorders.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So until the BBC in the sort of like early 80s, when there was a big gap between Tom Baker and Peter Davison, where they did these repeats, the 5 Doctors or whatever, whatever it was. They showed an episode of a Patrick Troughton story. I sort of fell in love then. My dad was right. Wow, that was a great story. It would have been probably one of the worst ones as well. Probably been The Mind Robber, something like that. It would have been one of the final final ones,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
four-parters that were there.
yeah,
It
yeah.
definitely wouldn't have been Tomb of the Cybermen, because that wasn't even
No.
found when the BBC
Oh,
repeated
my
these
favorite.
on BBC Two.
Yeah,
So I then, when I saw that, and I went, wow, that is good. I wanted more. So
yes,
then
yeah.
that sort of like gave me my second coming of Doctor Who with Peter Davison, which is why I didn't think Peter Davison was a bad Doctor. But he was a
Oh,
different type of Doctor. He was
yeah,
young. He was young. I'll say that.
yeah.
He was even young to me.
Mm,
He didn't seem that protect. He didn't. What it was. I always felt the Doctor was protective over everybody. He
yeah.
seemed like, I can't protect you because I don't know what the hell I'm
Mm,
doing.
mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah,
all the other companions suddenly became stronger. And
yeah,
that was probably a good shift, because it
yeah,
made things different to
mm,
Tom Baker. Because I
yeah,
think Tom Baker could be a bit overpowering with the "I'm not
mm,
scared, can I offer you a jelly baby" type
yeah,
thing all the way
yeah,
through
yeah.
life. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? So yeah, I'll end it there by just saying, yeah, Pat Troughton to me.
I think
Um,
an important thing to say. I mean, I think a lot of people who like new Doctor Who, I think for me, the reason why classic Who works on a lot of different, I could talk about it for hours, but is an important part of the Doctor's character. They didn't sexualize the Doctor, and that made it better. I know
oh
people
yeah,
might not say that, but his love for his companions was brilliant, and it's there. You watch classic Doctor Who, and he's very caring, but he doesn't sexualize it. And nowadays, the difference is that if you show love and affection, it's immediately put into a sexualized way, which is
that
rather
came across.
ridiculous.
I think the first time that you ever saw that was in Doctor Who the movie, wasn't it? With Paul, the Eighth
From
Doctor.
again,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
when yeah,
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 yeah. I mean, that was the first time you see the Doctor
yeah,
kiss for a
yeah, yeah,
start.
exactly, yeah, yeah,
And that's the Americans, I think, bringing in
yeah. I know they
their
have to have it.
ideas.
But for me, one of the most striking scenes ever, really, in Doctor Who, is the look on John Pertwee's face when Joe leaves.
Joe
He's
lives in the Green
alone
Death. Yeah, the
on the
Green
Green
Death.
Death. That really struck me at the time, and even now watching it again, he expresses so much in his love for Joe, and it is a genuine love and affection for her. And that is amazing. But nowadays they'd ruin it. They wouldn't be able to.
Well, this is that simpler time thing again. If you think about it as well, it would be really weird for say someone like Patrick Troughton to kiss one of the companions,
Yeah,
because it'd be like,
yeah,
this is a 50-year-old guy kissing a 20-something year
yeah. I
old,
can see that. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then John Pertwee, he looked either the same age or even a bit older because of his
yeah.
grey hair.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
He's like a
you you
grandfather in many ways. They all were.
I think him kissing Joe or
Yeah,
even Sarah
yeah,
Jane,
yeah. Well,
because they were in
yeah.
the final
It
season,
would look.
would be a bit strange. Tom Baker now becoming more closer to the age of Sarah
Yeah,
Jane, you'd think, oh
yeah,
yeah, you can understand why. But it was always the companion having a crush on the Doctor.
yeah,
Because when they've come back in their things, they said, I had such a crush on you. You were my
yeah,
first love. You went away. You left me in Edinburgh or Scotland, because that's
yeah,
where Sarah Jane ended.
yeah,
Wasn't
yes,
in it
yeah,
wasn't in Putney or wherever it was
yeah.
that she was
It was.
supposed to
Yeah,
end up in. Um,
yeah,
it was in Edinburgh. God, she got back to London, I don't know, with just her bag. And that was after the deadly. No, it was just before the Deadly Assassin, wasn't it? So yeah. And then when the kiss came along, I think Richard T.
yeah,
Davis is just basically, I mean, he's well known as bringing lots
yeah,
of gay,
yeah, yeah,
iconic gay TV shows on, and he broke the mold a little bit because he
yeah,
just carried that on a little bit,
yeah.
and
And now
I
he's
think he
taking.
over I think he
Yeah,
over sexualized it a little bit,
yeah.
but
That's right.
that's what
Yeah,
a modern audience probably see, because they see mum and
yeah,
dad love each other. So why
yeah.
can't these two love
Mm.
each other?
And if the old Doctor, have done that, we'd now be thinking he was a dodgy. That's how they'd see
but I
it.
always thought back then it would be really
Yeah.
dodgy. You know, if John
Yeah.
Pertwee fell in love with Joe, I'd be going, "Hey, you what?"
Yeah. But that's what I mean. That's the strength of it. The fact is that it's a real strong, proper.
Well, he was
Isn't
my
it? Proper
safe
love.
granddad. He was my
Yeah.
safe granddad. I wouldn't have,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
any woman that went off with the doctor,
Yeah.
you thought, oh no, he's safe. He ain't gonna do anything with her, you know.
Yeah.
Because there was all the army and everything around, and they all didn't turn around and say, "Oh, we're gonna have to do we're gonna have to we're gonna have to do some background checks on you, Doc, to see whether there's something weird and sexual about you before Joe Grant could go in the TARDIS." There was none of that, was there? So,
Oh dear! And I better get there's some more comments coming. Lots of comments.
Carry on.
Yeah, because otherwise it'll be a long time. Once we get talking, we can't stop. Right, it's Tony York here. Hello, Tony. Evening, Ian and Del. Just been watching your Frenzy review, Ian. By the way, I have the World War II Olivier narrated documentary you were discussing. Yeah, what the World at War. A sometimes harrowing watch it was. I mean, it sticks for me because I was watching it when it was transmitted. It'd be in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And what an amazing! It always, because I loved history anyhow, and
I remember when that was first advertised as something that you could buy on VHS. How big the box was that? I mean, it must have been. I mean, I never actually bought it. But the World at War would have been like this. You'd be carrying it like
you need a wheelbarrow to bring it back, you know.
Because it had the famous symbol, you know, the World at War, which was that big line around the outside with World at War. So it was a famous sign, but I just thought to myself, I can't remember if they brought it out in episodic format or whether it came in a box set. But if it was a box set, it'd been a bloody big one. That's all I can remember.
What a nightmare on your shelves.
You'd have needed to have gone to an Arnold Schwarzenegger
my mum wouldn't have liked that
gym to get the muscles to carry the box home.
You're filling up our room. Right, Tony York says, yes, John Pertwee, of course. I know you're a massive John Pertwee fan. Yeah, Tony. And then Luke, so I like Patrick Troughton. He was great. He was also in Lord of the Rings, which shocked me when I realized in 2021.
I don't remember that because he died in 1980.
He died before that. I know you mean. You're thinking of Sylvester McCoy.
McCoy, who was in the
He
Hobbit
was in
as well.
Lord of the Rings.
Wasn't he in the Hobbit as well? Not sure. You might be right here.
Yeah, he's in this. He's in Lord of the Rings. I remember Sylvester McCoy.
So I remember seeing him. He's the wizard, and all the spiders were coming after him in that scene, wasn't it? Yeah. And
then we've got Tammy, Physical Media Live. Hello, Ian. Nice to have you live again. I'm just watching Blackadder on Blu-ray. Well, you'll be at Blackadder, another timeless classic that is. Everybody I know does talk about the very last series, the First World War one, because it's that again is like TV magic gold. That whole thing. It's
No Man's Land.
Always remember. It's one of those things that people never forget. Really, it's one of those things.
No, there's such good lines in there, and it's like, oh, so what's the great plan this time to bring the drinks trolley 1 foot further forward for the general? You know, and you just go 1 foot.
So much about First World War. It was so spot on. In fact, you would love that to have been taught put on at school when they teach the First World War, because it summed it caught exactly what the First World War was about. It really did. That's why it was outstanding. And that last scene, who can forget that? Let's see. Tony says, evening, Physical Media Life. And Physical Media Life. Hello, Tony York. How are you? Tony, okay, thanks. How's the Western watching going?
Oh, they're having their own little conversation.
Yeah, I'll put these. Tony, still deciding on which one to buy. it's a bit daunting at first. So many made in the 50s and 60s, and
Just before we came online, Ian, I was watching one YouTube channel, and what I
yeah,
didn't know was Tom Selleck was in a Western.
which one's
And he was in something called Quigley Down Under, which was in the Australian
an
outback. I don't know if
Australian
you
one?
remember
Oh,
that. And
yeah.
they've just brought that out on 4K this month in the States. That
Oh,
might be one
yeah.
that might be one to
I haven't.
recognize to these people, because Quigley Down Under, I remember that.
The Australian Western is an interesting concept. It's been popping up, I
Yeah.
noticed recently. Now, I've been watching what people are talking about on YouTube with Westerns, but I haven't plunged. But it's not that I haven't. I mean, the Eastwood films I watched when they came on the TV, never saw them. And my granddad, he used to sit there watching all the old John Wayne Westerns. My dad was war films, but my granddad, who lived with us, he was all Westerns. But also with him, it was all the TV, like Bonanza, High
Yeah.
Chaparral, Virginian, all of that sort of 60s era. He absolutely loved
Gunsmoke.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gunsmoke. How could I forget that one? So I had all these going on in the background, but I was all into more well, I don't know. I was into everything really. I had quite a big education, but I have to say that now in later years, the Western, I've not really got into the Western in the same way as other genres. Not that it means I don't like them. Certainly, if I was going to now get into Westerns, I'd probably go back. I'd get the Eastwood ones, I think.
Yeah. Pale
The
Rider and
Eastwood
stuff.
ones kind of fit what I probably like more than I mean, I could probably watch I'm a Stagecoach, the original John
I'll
Wayne.
tell you one that I'll tell you one that I think will surprise you if you haven't seen it. That is a modern one. It's a modern
Yeah.
one. If you ever get a chance to see it, great, because I'll tell you what, it's a very big homage, I think, to Sergio Leone.
Yeah.
And that is The Quick and the Dead. Right?
Ah.
The Quick and the Dead star Sharon Stone, first of all, as the lead.
Everybody's interested. Yeah.
Right?
Sharon Stone.
First of all, it's got Sharon Stone as the lead.
Yeah.
It's got a very early actor from Russell Crowe.
Wow.
Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. But the standout performance, just like Unforgiven, is Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman is the person that owns the town.
Wow.
He only allows the people to live in the town because he allows it. He actually says that, innit? He says, you only survive because I allow it. So you bring all your assassins to shoot me, you do whatever you want. So each year he holds a contest to see who is the fastest gun drawer, and it's why it's called The Quick and the Dead.
Wow.
And the reason it's like a homage is because Leone was very good at doing the very tight shot on the eyes with the light.
Yes, yeah.
You know, he did these facial shots.
Yeah.
And The Quick and the Dead does these weird camera angles. Like if you want to make somebody look menacing, then you shoot from on the floor upwards. And if you want to make somebody look small, you shoot up from the top downwards.
Right.
Which is a very European, which is a very European effect.
Yeah.
And Quick and the Dead is full of those. And it's got a fantastic score as well. I mean, I mean that album is brilliant. The Quick and the Dead, I can't recommend it enough. And it's done by Sam Raimi, who did the Spider-Man trilogy and The Evil Dead.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And it's the only Western I know he's done.
Wow.
And it didn't do well, but it's a cult film now.
It's one that people have got into now. Well, Westerns are something, and they're not off the agenda at all. It's like with everything, time, money, and all that.
Yeah, especially money.
Money for me is the problem for a lot of things. Right, let's carry on. Tony Hawk, I'm thinking of the John Wayne era. That is a massive era, John Wayne.
Yeah.
You're going right back to 1930s, right through to 70s. I think
the weirdest thing was seeing John Wayne as, what was he? He was one of those conquerors. What was his name? Can't think of his name now. Was it
One of those what?
Conquerors? He played a conqueror from a Mogul
One of
tribe.
those medieval kind of.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. And I was going, John Wayne is going to be a Chinese conqueror or something. I can't remember who it is. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's one of those things where I go live and I go Genghis Khan. That's it.
Yeah,
He played Genghis Khan. But John Wayne is playing Genghis Khan.
I know.
How far away can you be from you know, when it comes to casting an actor, right? You know,
the problem with John Wayne is that he's John Wayne in his acting. Because do you remember? Have you seen? And is it the greatest story ever told, where he plays a centurion, and he's going, "Truly, he's the Son of God," and it's the way he says it, and it's John Wayne. You're thinking that's John Wayne there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you actually asked me that question on my blog. You said, "What's your historical biblical thing?" And I told you, the greatest. It's a 4-hour film with John von Sydow, isn't it? I mean, blazing.
There's all sorts in there. Yeah. Oh right, right. Let's have a look. Tony Hawk, the Cavalry trilogy I mentioned could be a good start. Fort Apache, Rio Grande, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. I have heard of all those films. Rio Grande is one they've been talking a lot about. Has it had a 4K release or something?
I've got the Steelbook. It's just behind me, actually.
Yeah. So I think that's why that one's been talked about. But yeah, you know more about it, Tony, than I. So I didn't realize that was a. I know this. Is it The Searchers is always considered.
The Searchers is
one of his best westerns, isn't it? One of his greatest westerns. Tony Hawk, I believe I've seen some in HMV as I do glance over the Western collection. I'm sure they've got plenty in there. Richard Brown, David Tennant's era really spoiled the doctor-companion relationship. Yeah, I can understand what you're saying, but it's got worse. I think you can argue it. I mean, I won't argue, but I can see that if you're a sort of more less biased kind of outlook on Doctor Who, that a lot of people really do love David Tennant, and they could say that's where it all went wrong. Because
I'll give a positive to that.
Yeah.
Okay. When Russell T Davies goes too far, and it is because nobody's got a filter for his gob, right, and his writing, is that when Rose left, it was an angst, and it was a big, powerful story. Right?
I like Martha. Do you remember Martha? I really like Martha. She fancied the Doctor. Didn't she?
So this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Because of that, he then stepped back and said, "I'm never going to get that close again." And then Martha came in, and of course they couldn't have a relationship because he was closed off from it.
Yeah.
Then you've got Catherine Tate come in. Yeah. And it's more like a buddy type.
That's right. More like the traditional.
Right. And so so when you talk about he ruined things, but you've got to turn around and say there were some positives that come out of it because that occurred.
And there are some good stories, aren't there? 10th Doctor, the first period.
If you hadn't got that, oh my God, Rose was my love or something, it would have been. It wouldn't have added the emphasis to the other companions that came in after that. He ruined things, though, because he did stupid things like Rose is in another dimension.
Oh, yeah.
And there's another Doctor there because that grew out of the hand.
Yeah, more and more Doctors.
And I'm going, what the hell's all this nonsense?
Yeah. Well, he's still got he's got one of them now, hasn't he?
Oh, now you don't even know if this Doctor that we're following is the real Doctor, because as far as I know, the Doctor is now David Tennant. Yeah. He's sitting on doing a John Pertwee impression, having a cuppa in a garden somewhere. And of course, with all of that going on, it fed into the April Fool's joke. Did you see it where it was they were going to bring back the the 11th Doctor, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw it. Yeah,
You know, Matt Smith. It says, "Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to coming back into the TARDIS."
yeah.
April Fools. You know, I mean,
I mean, another thing is the 14th Doctor, right? Do we really know what the 14th Doctor was different from the others? There was no difference, hardly. I could hardly say any difference, but what they're supposed to be. There was supposed to be going to be some differences between the 14th and the 10th Doctor. You'd show me many differences. I couldn't see any. It was David Tennant's the 10th Doctor again. So that was all
he's got a typewriter, and I'm pretty sure he didn't know when he
Yeah.
was writing Doctor Who says this, Doctor Who says that. I didn't know. I reckon he got it jumbled up and didn't know which one he was talking about.
And
So,
he's got
nor
worse.
did they. Nor
We
did
know
they.
he's got worse. Oh, right. The DVD should be very cheap now. I had those mentioned on DVD, but recently got the Blu-rays as I enjoy those three particularly. Yeah, that's the Westerns. Yeah. Physical Media Life. I agree with that, Richard Brown. Tony York. Are the Blu-ray upgrades better in quality? I would have thought so, but sometimes you can't tell.
Yeah.
Tony York. Evening, Richard. I stopped watching after Tennant left the role. Yeah, I think a lot of
some people did. Some people did.
I did carry on, actually, but I'm a Doctor Who fan. It's only now that the tragedy has really set in. I never thought
it's that one question. It's that one question, isn't it, Ian? That's asked to you as a host and me as a host on my side, and that is we went through all of the bad period.
Yeah,
there was a lot of
the
stuff
wilderness
going
years
on with Colin Baker and when
all
Sylvester
that,
McCoy. It was a very hit and miss with the quality.
Yeah.
And then you had a drought of about 14 years, with only a film in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And you just longed and went, do you know what? Don't care how bad it is. I just want it back on telly.
That's right.
Of course, then when it gets really bad, people are going, why don't you just take this off? And you go, no, because 14 years we were in the wilderness. We only had audio to listen to and all of this sort of stuff and the regular bringing out the episodes. So of course, when people turn around and say this is my jumping off point, I totally get it.
Yeah.
When I say it's my jumping off point, because I have mentioned that probably twice.
Yeah.
It's always been, what I mean by that is I'll watch it, but I'm not bothered whether I watch it on the night it's on.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less if I watched it 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
I'll get to watch it, but I'm not bothered whether I miss it.
I'm kind of the same. I will watch it, but as I keep saying to people, I've not bought the 60th celebration. I just can't stomach to buy it.
I bought it because it was a
I know
steel
you
book.
bought it, and that blooming Christmas special. I just could not have that on my shelves. Have you? Is it out yet? That Christmas special? I think I
don't know because I bought the Christmas special. I bought the 60th anniversary stuff. I refused to. I tell you what. Every person that's a Doctor Who collector, will always turn around and say, "Should I buy the Christmas special?" Because then the box set comes out, and the Christmas special is the first episode on the box set. Right. So then I've gone and bought the singular episode, and I bought it again in the box set.
Yeah.
So I always wait until the box set comes
and
out.
You can use that now
I'll go back and get the other one.
But I wonder how far it stretched you. Are you going to, if it's really bad, if it's out like the Christmas special was, the direction it's going, then will you buy it? That is the question.
If it's on Steelbook, I will. If it's not on Steelbook, I won't.
I certainly.
I'm pretty sure.
I can't see myself doing it. I could be wrong. I might get a demand, but if I can't buy those others, they just won't fit in my collection. I just can't.
Something like this. There's a lot of people that don't want to fall into the trap of not buying something, and I'll tell you the reason why. There was Capaldi, wasn't there? Right?
Yeah.
His like first or second season of him doing the Doctor came out as a Steelbook with just his head on it, and it's got the companion on the head on the other side.
Right.
and
Yeah.
nobody bought it. Absolutely nobody bought it. It was like in the bargain bin for years, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to buy that, it's like £200.
Ooh,
You
wow.
cannot get
Yeah.
it for love nor money.
Yeah.
It's only on eBay, and yet they couldn't sell it when it first came out. It was
Yeah.
just there,
Yeah.
right? And so you don't want to fall. So people now don't want to fall into that trap. So they get into the habit of going, I'll just buy it. I don't
Yeah.
want it. I'll put it on my shelf. If I ever
Yeah.
get round to thinking I want to watch it, it's there.
Yeah.
As long as I've got it in my collection, I know I don't have to worry about getting eBay for inflated prices. So
Yeah.
people now are buying things knowing
Yeah.
that it might be poor quality
Yeah.
or whatever, and not even doing it. And that's a scary thing. It's great for the people that manufacture the discs. It's bad for
Yeah.
anybody else because all you're doing then is buying something blind.
Yeah. It's interesting because you would have thought with the way I feel that the Jodie Whittaker era, I wouldn't have bought them. But
Yeah.
I did. Because there's a few reasons. I like Jodie Whittaker. I really like her. And I thought her Doctor was good. The problem was the writing. There we say it again, the writing.
Yeah.
And I could probably maybe pick, not many, but I could pick maybe one or two stories that were okay, that were all right, that were enjoyable, and that were quite good, and allowed her to shine. I think she's underestimated.
There was a couple of cheap things in there, Ian. Though I mean, the very first story, was he made up of teeth? Dentures.
Oh,
Jodie Whittaker's first story where she regenerated into a woman and all that
I
sort of
remember
stuff.
the first one. I don't remember
because it was piggybacked. The very first story invented a creature that basically was so powerful, but made out of teeth or something, right?
God.
And it was also the closing story of that particular season.
And
what I'm trying to get at is teeth is just another version of skulls, and it's the predator.
Yeah.
So all that Chibnall had done is made a cheap predator,
and not very good at.
This person doesn't collect skulls, collects teeth. I'm thinking, how's that cool? Oh, I go around collecting molars from aliens.
Funnily enough, I think her best story was the last one, The Power of the Doctor, because it was like a tribute thing. You didn't have to go too much into how good the story was. It was just they threw everything in, and it was all right. It was entertaining. The fact that you can call it entertaining is a good thing. Whereas this Christmas special, I could not even see any saving grace. I couldn't even find it entertaining. I mean, blooming things. Oh, that song! I could, I'd rather listen. I'd rather listen to the Gunfighters song.
Bloody hell,
like that. I'm going
that is awful.
That is the worst song ever in Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's all.
But I think that thing was, whatever it was awful.
Yeah, a load of Muppets with singing.
Yeah.
Not for me. But
what's happened to science fiction?
I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was.
Sorry.
No. It was about the power of the Doctor. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
When everybody was really criticizing Jodie Whittaker and they said, you've destroyed Doctor Who with this Timeless Child episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where the Doctor is no longer the Doctor and William Hartnell is no longer the number one stuff. I always thought to myself, look, what you got to understand about Doctor Who is that whenever somebody introduced someone like the Master, he's gone into the Panopticon or whatever it is, and he's gone into and he's rewritten history.
Yeah.
How do you know that? William Hartnell is still not the first Doctor, because for all you know, he's hacked it and made everybody believe this.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Time Lord history, and he's basically gone into the archives and changed history around from a visual aspect of things, right? Because you're changing something at a sort of genetic level, but for all you know, the Master actually pushed that in, and it's made it canon.
That's the
And
beautiful
you
thing
and
about Doctor Who.
therefore a writer can come in and say,
Yeah,
that's exactly
yeah,
how it happened.
yeah,
The master came
yeah,
along, hacked the panopticon
yeah.
or whatever it was.
You
And
can
so
do that.
actually William Hartnell was still the first Doctor.
That's the
And
beauty of it.
well,
Yeah,
you're back to
yeah,
where it was. It's
yeah,
just that Russell T Davies does stupid things by turning around saying, I'm not reversing anything. I
it's,
loved it. I love
yeah.
Doctor Who as it is and all of this.
And
And
he's making, and I love making it worse.
I
Yeah,
loved all of these producers and directors that did
yeah,
it when I left, and I thought that their ideas were great. And
yeah,
as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned, that means I'm not reversing anything, right? And I thought to myself, well,
He's lost. He doesn't.
if you're like that, you've got no balls,
Yeah, it's got.
really,
It doesn't,
because
he doesn't love Doctor Who in the same way as a lot of fans
that's what
do.
I think.
Yeah, and nobody. Well, they did start to bring it up. The Brain of Morbius was quite an interesting
Oh,
episode as well. But I better not go too much. I'll be on hours. But
that's a
Brain of Morbius
Frankenstein
is a
story.
subject.
What's not to love? That's
Yeah,
Frankenstein, isn't
it
it?
is.
So
Hello, Tony. Must admit, never liked Tennant's Doctor. Preferred Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. Yes, I can understand that.
the bad thing about Peter Capaldi to me was I
Yeah,
hated all this sonic
yeah,
guitar and sonic sunglasses.
yeah.
What the
I
bloody
actually
hell's all
thought
that crap?
I kind of got a bit bored with him, dare I say it. But I like Bill because she was a bit different as a companion,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she only had one season, didn't she?
And wasn't it a really good idea where you get the tear mark on the Cyberman's helmet is actually from her where she cried.
Yeah,
That's where the teardrop comes from.
yeah.
I went,
I mean, that was a great
wow!
story.
I didn't think of that as a good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
highlighting. That's highlighting
yeah.
writing genius
Yes,
because nobody,
which
I think, could have thought of
somebody
that.
could learn from.
But it's filled in
Yeah,
with so much of a
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
That's the trouble to get to that one thing that was good about it.
yeah. And yeah, Tony's on about his westerns. Yes, but it might be an idea to check them out on DVD first to see if you enjoyed them. Yeah, I think that's probably a good advice because some of them can be expensive.
Yeah.
Tennant was okay for me, but I just seemed to lose interest around the time he left. I understand a lot of people felt that. Blackadder finally got Blu-ray release, and you can tell the difference from DVD. I love history. Well, yeah, I love history. History is a big part of me. I'm sure it's a great release. It's probably not too expensive either. It's something I possibly could upgrade to maybe.
But it was nice that was it UK
Yeah.
Gold last year. They did the unaired pilot.
Did they?
Yeah. So in other words, they got what was his name? Richard. Forgot his name. The person Richard Curtis.
Oh,
Richard
right.
Curtis.
Yeah.
And they showed the unaired first episode of Blackadder.
Wow.
Before it turned into the first Blackadder series, which was a really weird series anyway. It was hit and miss, that first series.
Yeah,
with Brian
different.
Blessed.
Yeah.
So they showed him
Interesting.
showed him, and he's more Blackadder 2, but in the Blackadder 1 role.
Yeah.
The character really did have a menace behind him, where if you watch the first season of Blackadder, he's a coward.
Yes.
He's just cowardly background. There's no cunning plan or anything like this in it. But the pilot they did is much like Blackadder 2.
Yeah.
But in the clothing of Blackadder 1. So it's really weird to watch. Half an hour long it is.
Wow. Yeah, it's making me think about that anyhow in future. I don't know, it's a matter of choices. Anyhow, here's what you mentioned. Quigley Down Under is great. I got the Media Book Blu-ray a few months ago.
They just upgraded it to 4K, is what I was saying, and it only came out last month in the States. It's not even in this country.
Now, I've heard this one. I haven't got this either. I've heard a lot about it. Bone Tomahawk is an excellent modern horror western with Kurt Russell.
It is.
Everybody always mentions it. It's one that's on my list.
I got the steel book of that as well.
I must get it because I've heard there's some very good horror.
It's very gruesome. It's very gruesome. Very gruesome.
Oh, right.
I mean, some of the things that go on. I mean, these people are cannibals. Tell you like that.
So. We're in. It sounds good. Agreed, Richard. I don't usually go for the more brutal horrors, but I made an exception as this was a Western base. That's The Bone Tomahawk, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like a
I've
cannibal.
definitely
It's like a
seen it.
cannibal version of Deadwood.
Is it? Oh, great. I haven't
You know,
seen
you know.
Deadwood.
See, Deadwood is a great TV series, and
That's with
it's a western.
what's his name's in that, isn't he? What's his name? He was famous as the antique dealer, and he's in quite a few films.
I know it is.
I've forgotten his name. I'm hopeless with names. I bet somebody in comments will probably know his name.
I'm just going to see his squirm.
As soon as he say it, we'll go, oh, of course. I just get honestly.
Anyway, Deadwood is a great western TV series, modern. The Bone Tomahawk is that western with cannibals in it, which you don't normally think about. You think about the Indians and their scalping ways, but you didn't think they went that far. Bloody hell. You know what I mean?
Richard. Evening, chaps. Yeah, and the idea of that is a good concept, bringing it into horror. This is what you're related to what you said. Genghis Khan.
Well, I ruin it for you. The name you were thinking of, by the way, was Ian McShane. Just so you know.
That's it. Brilliant. He dropped.
But I wanted to see you squirm. That was all. That's why I was going. I'm going to watch you squirm because that's where I was a minute ago.
Yeah. You see, I'm lucky. I just plead old age and senility at my age. You see, I can just say I'm an old bugger who doesn't know what he's on about. So that's all right. I can forget it. Richard Brown, there it is again.
Genghis Khan, well, that's what I mean. So I got you my own back. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
And then Polymer Spammer. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Well done thank you coming on here. You probably disappeared now. I wondered what that was ages ago. Tony. One of the few non-westerns I really enjoy with John Wayne is Brannigan. Also a cop one, isn't it? Probably because it also has, one of my favourite actors, Richard Attenborough and Judy Beeson.
I think that was on this afternoon, believe it or not, on one of the Freeview channels before Star Trek. Before Star Trek comes on 5 o'clock, it's Legends, I think, in TV. Legends.
I'm
TV,
definitely collecting a lot of Richard Attenborough films, and knowing he's in that makes me think, because I remember Brannigan. I do remember that he did those particular. There was a period, didn't he, where he did these cop films. Did John Wayne, didn't he? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, my granddad, all of us. Well,
because he died of cancer, and he did a lot of things where he sort of like a sheriff in New York.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah. That's how I looked at him. It was like, it's really weird seeing John Wayne in normal clothes, but he's always in New York. He actually did one in London. He actually came over to London and did one, didn't he?
Called? That one in London, there is one.
It was like a Columbo, but with John Wayne as Columbo. I know
what you mean. Was it something
MacGyver or something? I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm sure Tony will know. I bet he knows.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm not caught up with everything John Wayne's done, but I do have a huge respect for his westerns. And I do know he did things like The Last Gunfighter and all of this because he was dying basically.
Yeah, so True Grit in there, and that other one. Is it True Grit? I remember it was one with a patch on that. The View with Drew.
Hey,
what's up?
Hey, I recognise The View with Drew. I chat with him when I'm in Scott's streams and stuff. So.
The View with Drew. Good news, everyone. My channel subscriber count is growing. It's at 875. Brilliant. Wow. You're doing great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I wish I could get mine up to that. I'm still subscribed. 3 years, 3 years, and I'm still below 200.
Well, I'm going to give a big shout out. Get to Delboy. He's getting near 200. I'm just going to put that announcement out. He's near 200. We've got to get him to over 200. Come on. If you haven't subscribed to Delboy, subscribe to him. I'll put the link as it's over, and I'll put a thing. We've got to get him to 200. Come on. Subscribe.
It's very nice of you. It's very nice of you.
And subscribe. Get subscribing, everybody.
He's at the same level as Rock God then, Nigel. He's at about 890 something.
He's getting nearer. He's going pretty quick. I was near him, and Rock God's just gone into another planet. It's just accelerated away. Physical mini life. I like the 10th Doctor episodes, but not himself. I prefer Peter Capaldi. Christopher Eccleston. Yeah, Christopher Eccleston. Know him. Of course, did you notice Christopher Eccleston? There's no sexual stuff with Christopher Eccleston either. That's another interesting point.
No, it was more the relationship like John Pertwee and Joe Brown.
It was great. Rose. That's why I liked it more. He was just something about him.
And again, the story made sense because he's the person who came out of the Time War.
Yeah.
He's not really going to be interested in getting somebody's knickers, is he?
Yeah. No.
You think about it like that. You know, I've just thought my whole planet's been blown up. And the first thing I'm thinking about is going for Rose. Yeah. Exactly. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
No. And I like it because he was a northerner.
It's a northerner, yeah. And he was the thing about it was the thing that I didn't understand with the politics side of things is that he was already in a Russell T Davies production, wasn't he?
That's how he got the part in many ways.
So I thought he got on well with them, but then if he knew that sort of thing was going on, how come it changed so bad in Doctor Who? Because
I think maybe it was the other team. It wasn't all the team. Don't forget there were other producers. There's a woman producer. I don't know her name that popped in.
Oh yeah,
and there's a bloke who did Coronation Street. I know nothing hardly about Coronation Street, but I saw that Coronation Street. So I don't think they would have been doing those other programs that Christopher Eccleston was in. Somebody might correct me and know more about it, but as far as I know.
But he actually mentions Richard T. Davies by name when he actually says, because they asked him a question at a convention and said, what would bring you back? And he said, get rid of Russell T. Davies, Judy, whatever. I think
that's her name.
Judy something.
It's
the other bloke. And I will come back, which means that he's actually mentioned Richard T. Davies. And that means that Richard D. Davies brought him in to, it's Queer at North or whatever it was called. I forgot what it's called. So how you
things must have changed. That must have happened.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if this helps you, Ian, but I think there's a little button that says show people's names underneath our pictures, and then you'll see what my website's called.
Oh, right. Where does it say that? Edit name. No. Oh yeah, because here it's got it. Does that come up?
No, you have to. I think. Don't worry about it. But if anybody wants to know, my name's Delboy 3K1 Retro Zone.
You'll have to show me how to put it. I don't know where it comes up because on here. Sorry, everybody. I won't go on too long because I'm hopeless at this screen, man. It's got your name here, Delboy 3K1 Retro Zone.
I think it's in one of those. There's a strip underneath, and it's got pictures, and you can move me to the right and up and down and all of that sort of stuff. I think underneath there's a thing that says show tags or something like that. But I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay,
it's very nice if anybody does want it. But my one's Delboy 3K1.
Yeah. And just do a search as well, but I will put it in afterwards. Do a search, just put Delboy in, and it comes up.
It will be the nicest thing in the world to go above 200 because every time I gain someone, 5 go. Really annoys,
I know what you mean.
Really annoys me.
I mentioned that I like something, and sometimes, whoosh, like music. I'm a glutton for punishment, because I do a bit of music. And I have to be careful. Well, I'm not careful. I say what I think and what I like. But if you put that you don't like somebody or you like somebody, you can. It just goes like that. It's ridiculous.
What do you mean you don't like Queen? What?
Yeah. Oh, you've questioned. You might say, "Oh, I don't like Queen, but I like maybe like 1-2 songs." But he was what? Yeah. On which album? Or I don't know. Yeah. You have to be very careful. No. Oh, yeah, right. Hello, Danny. Yeah, sorry, I'm being a bit late with this. Hello, Danny. You're a regular. We know you everywhere. I hope you're all good. Yeah. Danny, I love watching it. Well, why not? Why not? Indeed. It's a good Doctor Who zone here. We do talk about Doctor Who. Do you ever read any of the Doctor Who new adventure novels? Right, I'm going to be honest. Not back in the day, I may have read a few, but not recent, not for quite a few years. I mean, I have got some probably up here. There might be one or two, but I haven't got that many. I've got a feeling Delboy might have read a few. Did you?
I bought all of the old classic ones with Terence Dicks. Do you remember, with all the classic stories and they came them out and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, the Target books, the Target ones. Yeah,
and then I got a Kindle and bought a pack of them.
Yeah,
right. So I was buying them again for the second time.
Yeah.
But when Doctor Who went off the air,
yeah,
I should have been buying the books then, because they continued the stories, but I didn't.
Weren't they on Virgin? I'm sure
Yeah,
they
came out on it came out on
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 different books. I continued to buy the magazine for a while,
Yeah,
but it was getting a bit too much.
yeah,
So I stopped, and then when Doctor Who came back, I'd missed so much I was
Yeah.
never going to be able to get caught up. So I looked for an alternative, and the alternative to me was Big Finish. So it was easier for me to go, do you know what? I can pick up the Big Finish productions, because there's only been something like 20 or 30 of these that I've missed.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know what the number was. And I could probably buy 2 a month, and it wouldn't be too long before I'm caught up, and then I can continue with those. So the books are still, to me, very fragmented, because I've got them all digital, because the world of digital is brilliant. You can go onto any torrent site or whatever it is, and you can download every book in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I can do that, but I haven't got them as a physical book. But when it comes to Big Finish, and when it comes to the classic series, I've got them as bought products. Do you see what I mean? So I've got the actual originals. So I've got all the Big Finish stuff, and I've got all of the classic, and I've got all of the modern,
I know,
Blu-rays and stuff. So
the new adventures are very collectible, I think. Some of them
they are
quite good prices. And of course, I'm sure that the story, is it called Being Human? The 10th Doctor story was from one of the new adventures. You remember that one with Martha, and the Doctor, in fact, is the darkest we see the Doctor in that story.
Wasn't being human the ghost and the werewolf and Dracula living in a house?
No, that was a TV series.
Yeah, Being Human, isn't it?
Yeah, but do you know, anybody as a Doctor, what is the name of the story? I think you remember it. I think it's set in First World War, isn't it? And there's Martha is in it, and but Martha is like is she like a nurse? Is he a teacher or something like that?
Oh, I know who you're talking about, with the scarecrows.
Yes, yeah. And
he puts his consciousness in a watch for the first time, the fob watch.
But doesn't he actually? You never see the Doctor like that. But he sends these people. He punishes these people who are behind it all, the aliens, and you don't often see him do that.
I think you remember that bit? Yeah, well, yeah. It was a great two-parter, because it shows the Doctor being more human.
That's right. Yeah.
It was based around World War, wasn't it? Because it was almost like a Mr. Chips.
I've got it. No, that's it. I've got it. It's just come to me. It's a 7th Doctor story in the New Adventures.
It's David Tennant.
They adapted it for the 10th Doctor. They obviously must have changed quite a bit, but I've never read them. But yeah, it was apparently from the New Adventures, but it was the 7th Doctor. Of course, a lot of those 7th Doctor. Initially, the New Adventures obviously continued after 1989.
Sylvester McCoy's reign, yeah.
So we went into a lot more about Ace as well. I think that develops a whole universe and its own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they took that story anyhow from there. Anyhow, I'm going on about it.
Yeah, you get.
What's your favorite Troughton story, Ian and Del? Invasion for me closely followed by War Games. I think it's no
Ooh.
secret. My favorite is, you've got it, The Tomb of the Cyberman. It's just such I remember that story so much. I vaguely remember it being transmitted. I can't give you 100% because I was watching Doctor Who as a child. I vaguely remember it. But for me, the excitement of that story came because at the time in the late 80s, they were started to realize that we need to find these missing stories.
Yeah,
And that came out of the blue, didn't it? I think they
it
found it in
did.
Hong Kong, somewhere like that. And it was one they were saying, we'll never find it. We'll it's one of the best um second Doctor stories, and we'll never find it. It's lost forever. And then it came. And we thought, wow, we found this. And I remember the VHS, the excitement of going to buy the VHS story, putting it in the machine and watching it
Yeah.
and thinking, wow, this is, and the thing was, the hype, it lived up to the hype. The story turned out to be a great story.
Oh, it
It was
was. Yeah.
fantastic. And I think that influenced me to some extent why I actually really love that story. The other second Doctor story, I suppose, I like the let's see, the Ice Warriors quite a lot,
Oh,
and
right.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of
Which
criticism.
has got
Some
Bernard,
people don't like it.
which has got the Carry On actor in it, hasn't it?
Yeah, this the Carry On actors, the Peter Butterworth, but that's
Peter
in the
Butter.
first
No, 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 no,
Doctor.
no, 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 no. You know, Sid James always had a sidekick. You know, Bernard Breslaw, was
Oh,
that his
but
name?
yes, yes,
He
yeah,
was dressed
yeah.
up as an ice
Bernard,
warrior, wasn't he? In
that's
that.
right. You've got it. You're right. You're right. Yeah, Bernard Breslow. Yeah. It's the last. It's the Seeds of Death, which is complete. And I like the transmats and all that sort of stuff, and the Cyber Warriors.
That was
A lot,
probably the
a
one that
lot
the
of people think
BBC
it's a
Two
bit.
showed
Yeah,
when I was telling you about they showed a repeat
they did.
before
They
Peter Davison.
repeated the
I'm pretty
Five
sure
Faces of Doctor Who's story.
because it
That's
was
when I
called
saw it.
TMAT then, wasn't it? It was called
Yeah,
TMAT
T-Mat. Yeah, fantastic. Anyhow,
because there was
what's your favourite story, Doctor Who?
it's wait
I'm sorry,
you've met
Patrick Troughton. Patrick Troughton story.
it's a hard one, but I've only got there's three stories that stand out for me with Pat Troughton, and that is like you say, Tomb of the Cybermen, right? Some people find I'm absolutely mental for saying this, but it would be the War Games. But
Yeah,
I actually like the War
I can
Games.
understand that. Yeah,
But the one that nobody contradicts me on is the Web of Fear.
yeah,
And the reason I like the Web of Fear is because of the underground. I thought that they did the underground scenes really, really well. I'm not interested in Yetis. It's
yeah,
just that it's set
yeah.
in the underground. And I love it where they're filming underground and you see all the railway tracks. And then they come to a junction point and you see the familiar signs.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's why I go, oh, this
Okay.
is so good because that's a part of London that I can recognize.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Where I don't live in London, so of course it's something to me like, oh wow, look at the underground, look at that, I've been there, look at that King's
Yeah.
Cross, what's that?
Yeah.
You know, it's like that with me. So
Yeah. You're making me want to watch it now. I say that it's got all nostalgic. It's all nostalgia, right? Physical media. I bought the Christmas special, watched it. It was terrible. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm afraid it was terrible. I hadn't even bought it. Some of the Blu-ray Doctor Who show only in 4.3. I like the standard DV Doctor Who's that have filled the whole TV screen. Ah, yeah.
Right. What that basically means is 4.3 is what they call a pan and scan type.
Yes.
Format.
Yeah.
If Doctor Who is filmed with what they call an anamorphic lens, which is basically a widescreen lens with the lines actually on the lens, so that you can actually do a shot, you can see that you can pan out. When your television is a 16, because all televisions now are 16:9 or 16:10.
Yeah.
Right. You only get a border if you're watching a 2:3:5 to 2:3:9 to 1 ratio like Lawrence of Arabia and all of that sort of stuff, right? That's
Yeah.
when you get a border. No matter what widescreen telly you've got a border at the top and bottom. But 16:9, it basically gives you that extra. But then when you go 4:3, you don't lose too much, and it's what they call an anamorphic lens.
Right.
And most of modern Who is filmed with an anamorphic lens. That's why you saw Doctor Who at the cinema when it was its 50th anniversary.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They did. They put it on the screen, didn't they?
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that with modern.
When it was modern Doctor, when you go back to classic Doctor Who, it was filmed with indoor cameras, which are 4:3 in nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't there's no such thing as an anamorphic lens in the BBC couldn't afford a color camera until BBC Two bought one.
Yeah.
It was color on BBC Two before BBC One had it.
Yes, yeah.
If I remember rightly.
I remember BBC Two, they used to have what they call like screen tests and trade films, they called them. Yeah. And you'd get like a bloke doing a pottery or doing something, and
so they tested a color transmission on BBC Two. And they did it because they wanted Wimbledon that year to be in color.
Yeah,
if I remember rightly.
Things like Dixon's would have these on Curry's. They'd have them showing these, and people would be looking at them, going, "Wow, look at that!" And all it was these funny little short films in color.
And they still had wooden surrounds around the outside of the TV.
Yeah. But as you mentioned in something else that I remember recently, a lot of people just simply could not afford. We had to rent
multi-broadcast and that,
yeah. We rented. I think a lot of people rented because they were just too expensive. Well, even black and white ones were quite expensive.
Our first remote had a light and a wire coming out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. We didn't have an infrared remote control for a couple of years. We had.
I remember the television we had in '60s that I was watching Doctor Who was this very small thing in a cabinet. I mean, it really was. It was like smaller than a portable TV, I think. Yeah. And it's just there, and we were all there. I don't know how much that was, but we actually bought one. God, I don't know.
Did you have the magnified lens in the front of it then?
Yeah, we should have done. No, I don't remember having that. I just remember being right on top of it, and they were saying, "Get out of the way! Come on, get out of the way!" But quality, even then, I knew it was still fascinating. It was still fantastic seeing it, but you knew the quality. It was no better than my dad's movies. In fact, it could have been worse than my dad's own movies. Yeah. But once it improved, I think we then rented a black and white TV, and it was a bigger one, and it was like, wow, look at that. Amazing, the picture quality. Anyhow, Tammy, Physical Media Life, I picked up Blackadder for £42 in CX.
Sex, kex. I don't know what.
It's on the brain, isn't it?
Sex.
CX. I thought it was called sex when I first.
No, it is. It is. It's sex. But it's just I still call it kex.
Yes. It was £50 in HMV.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I suppose £42 isn't bad for Blu-ray, is it? For
I mean, it depends. It depends because it's been brought out so many times that when you get to the stage where it's the complete Blackadder, it also includes
the special,
the one-off Christmas specials and all of this sort of stuff. And then, of course, it goes to Blu-ray, and then that adds another price element to it. And now there'll be another one out, and it'll be this Lost Pilot. You'll have to buy it again. And it's like, how many times am I buying this?
There could be an argument. I don't know, because I found this, that the last sort of DVD quality that they're bringing out, and plus if you upscale it, they can look really good anyhow.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't really need to get a Blu-ray. Well, obviously, I'm not going to pretend that obviously you want the best, but some things I've got, I'm thinking, well, Actually, it's like I've got Faulty Towers and an upgraded version on DVD of Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I don't really need to get the Blu-ray. It's that good. You know, I'm quite happy with it, and it's fine.
I am an R over buying things from DVD to Blu-ray when it comes to TV, and the reason for that is depending on which country made the show, it was
Yeah,
either done on film or it was done on videotape.
yeah,
Right? Anybody that knows anything knows that if you go back to a color film, you
yeah,
can upscale to Blu-ray and it's sharp and pin sharp.
yeah.
Right?
It is. Yeah,
Video was done with the lines in mind. So
yeah,
PAL is like 520 odd lines, and sorry, 625 line,
yeah,
and TV over in the States was 500 and something line. And then if you tried to Blu-ray that, then you're only going to get a patchy upgrade at best.
yeah,
When you then go from video to DVD and then DVD to upscale to Blu-ray, you can make things look very waxy.
yeah,
Because it can't. How can you sharpen it any more than it is?
yeah,
You see, because you're
yeah,
going beyond a medium that was ever there.
yeah, yeah,
With film, it's got no resolution. There's no
yeah,
dots per inch on a film.
yeah,
So it's however it was however it was scanned through.
yeah,
So if they do a when you hear that term native 2K, right? It means that they've gone to the film and scanned it, and it was done through a 2K process.
right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are cameras that are 4K lenses, and then it's like a true 4K. But what you have to remember this as well: when Hollywood archive a film and it goes back to Warner, and they've got the cans of the films, they do a scan, and that's what they archive. There's one copy of the film, and then there's an archive of the digital. And that's what they go back to when they're remastering, or to the DVD, as they go to the digital thing. They don't go back to the negative.
The negatives.
But the negative degrades.
Yes.
Which is why it's so difficult now to get another copy of Star Wars redone, because the negative is pretty much now knackered.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So all you can really do now is go to how they archived it in Hollywood, which is the scan.
We forget, don't we, that there's a lot of films that have just disappeared, that were never redone, that were in the archives. Oh, there was a fire. Wasn't there a fire at one of major studios which lost a lot of films?
Yeah.
I don't. So I mean, the film we only probably see. We don't see all of some of the great films in history. They're just not there. That people don't know about.
So I'm always skeptical, because my friend Denny. We've done a couple of streams together, and we were talking, and he said he's got some of the Laurel and Hardys on Blu-ray, and I said, "Oh, I'm interested in that."
Yeah.
But if you ever bought the box set of Laurel and Hardy, it comes up with a disclaimer saying we're a company that have gone back to the negative, and we've actually brought these and we've cleaned them up as best as we possibly can. Now, to get those Laurel and Hardy prints out of the Smithsonian, where they keep it must cost a fortune, because it's like, whoa, you're gonna take these out and let the air get to these things again.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, you're going to want some money, right? All they're going to do is go back to those scans that they did of the DVDs. So I asked him, what's the quality like? And he said, oh, they're exceptional. And I said, right, they must have gone back to the negative then.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, how many times can they bring out the negative again for that? Because the film will degrade.
Yeah.
You can only coat it again with a non-degrading chemical. So many times, I think, because it has to go through water. It goes through a bath of water. I don't know if you know this, but the way they get rid of the scratches, right? This is something that I learned from
on extras. I've seen these things. Yeah.
Right. Well, I've seen the way that I saw it is because there's a YouTube guy out there called, I think, the movie guy. He's an ex-projectionist.
Yeah.
Brilliant guy. It goes through a bath of water. And that's because the water goes into the actual physical groove that actually has got the scratch. Because it's a scratch. It's actually like a CD. It's an actual groove. The water goes into the into the film groove, when it's scanned, it's a white light. So it basically looks like a white line, and then you can actually paint over it with digital.
Oh.
And those scratches have to be bright white so that you can see them.
Mm.
And you do that by passing it through water. But the film with water, it's going to get oxidized.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. This is where I'm saying, look, we've got to protect our films.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many times you can do this restoration process.
Yeah. That's why you need you almost need, it's expensive, isn't it, to do new negatives of films?
Yeah. Which is why I love it when they do things like the 10 Commandments, Spartacus, Ben-Hur, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been you've already got to remaster. It actually comes up and says this restoration has been done by the original director and all of that. That means that the director actually asked for the negative to come out so that they can scan it. And at the time, they did that with the most modern equipment that was there, and it was still good. It was still good equipment. So you've really got a good negative. You've got what they do is they develop a new interpositive. They put it back onto film.
Yeah.
So you can then scan that.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? You're sort of like bumping things up a bit. But I really want a Ben-Hur 4K. I don't think there is a Ben-Hur 4K.
No, they should do one.
The 10 Commandments is a reference disc. Quality. I mean, my God, the 10 Commandments looks gorgeous. 2001 is a gorgeous reference 4K disc.
Yeah.
Oh, Maverick, that's a reference 4K.
Yeah, disc. Maverick. Yeah. Right. Let me just have a look here. Tony. Yeah, Ian McShane. That's it. We're talking about. Yeah, and then we've got another one. Who knows? Ian McShane. My brain. I own Deadwood. Love the show. Didn't they do a movie too? I don't know.
Yeah, it was cancelled after the fourth season, and they basically gave Deadwood back to have an ending because it never had an ending. So Netflix did a film that ended the whole thing off 5 years after the show was cancelled.
And was it a good ending? Was it satisfying?
It was satisfying. They brought all the actors back and the writers and everything. Good. It was pretty good.
Richard Vorderson. Bone Tomahawk was best Western I'd seen since Open Range with Kevin Costner. Yeah. Now, there's a name that was very associated. Actually, I like, when I said I ain't got any Westerns, I have on DVD got Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves.
I absolutely love that. But I haven't watched that for a long time. But
I remember the furore on that because you went to see Dances with Wolves, and then he did a special edition, extended version at the Pictures, and at the same time as it came, literally about 6 months after it was at the Pictures, he then brought out a special VHS deluxe box of it, which had both the theatrical and the director's one in the same box. And it was a major event.
How long was the extended one?
It was an extra. If I remember right, it was an extra 35 minutes. And it took it beyond 3 hours and something.
Wow!
I remember when I went to see that film, my ass hurt on both occasions. They were both long. That's all I can remember about it. The thing that they added was they added more of when he was being with the tribe. That's all they really did. And I'm one of those skeptics, right? Somebody asked me the other day, do you think that the current version of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the best version that's out there? And I have to actually go back and say, do you know what? I prefer the original theatrical version than the version that's out there at the moment because all they added was the Civil War. And I really wasn't interested in the Civil War. I wanted to know what was going on with Clint Eastwood and so forth, So what was going on in the Civil War's nice, and it adds an awful lot of dialogue to it. But as far as I'm concerned, you see, that's because I'd watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly so many times as a theatrical release before it would all these extra bits had been put in. I think it's a good 20-odd minutes that they put in. And these 20 minutes were all just Civil War stuff. And I was going, what's all this? What's this added?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you know which film I think about immediately when you think of the different versions? Is Apocalypse Now. I
Yeah,
saw it at the cinema. Absolutely.
4 versions of
Actually, I
that.
enjoyed it a lot. When I saw it at cinema, I thought, wow,
Ah,
this is a fantastic film. Apart from, I did have some criticisms because I tried to ignore about Marlon Brando, how much he was paid for his 10 minutes. That's another story. But anyhow, well, going on to that, all these versions, they add nothing to the film, as far as the more they keep putting in, this is another extended cut and this and
yeah.
that. They're already, and I watched it again, and I think there's so much unnecessary stuff in there. Why do I don't like the French bit when they go off to the French bit? It's like a
Yeah, yeah,
break
yeah.
from the film. Why are they doing that? We don't
But I
need
just want to,
that.
I just want to make it clear before I go any further, because I
Yeah,
don't want any hate to come across. It's what you have to understand with the good, the bad, the ugly is I love both versions. It's
yeah,
what you have to understand though is I was at a very, very young age when my
yeah,
father introduced me to the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the BBC would only ever show a
yeah,
certain version of the
yeah.
good, the
They
bad,
do.
and the
Yeah,
ugly
yeah,
until when DVD came along and they
yeah,
restored the picture, they put these extra elements in.
yeah,
Because I'm a big believer that you should have the version that the director wants you to see, and the director wants you to see the Civil War scenes.
yeah,
I'm in a quandary when I'm talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because my father and I would sit down and watch the theatrical version, and my father never saw the Civil War ones.
yeah,
And I can appreciate the Civil War stuff, and I do like history in a way, but I don't know too
yeah.
much about American history. But if you were to ask me, does nostalgia take over your position on something? It
Mm,
does in that film.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love both,
Actually,
and if they brought it, when it's out on 4K, I'd obviously want the one with the Civil War scenes in.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? But all I'm getting at is when they do deluxe sets like that, I've got the option, haven't I? Which is brilliant because
yeah.
you never had the
Because
option before. I
yeah,
can watch the theatrical one or I can watch the extended one. And with that particular film, I'd probably go with the theatrical one because it's the one that Dad and I enjoyed. And my dad's not
yeah,
with me anymore. So
yeah,
it's a very much a
yeah.
nostalgia thing for
Yes,
me.
I understand very
That's
much. Yeah,
because so it's not taking away anything to do
yeah,
with the Civil War bit. I just want to get that across because I don't want
yeah,
hatred.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what anybody, by the way, I can't see what
yeah,
anybody is saying. I'm just letting you know that's
yeah,
all I know
yeah, yeah.
when it comes to that.
Um, I think I don't want to go on too much because I could go on a long time, but Blade Runner is an interesting film. I saw it when it first
Oh,
came
yeah,
out. I saw the very first version of it
yeah.
with the
So did I. The Lad
the
Company
soundtrack.
that came out
And
from.
that I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say, and I know Nige would probably think I've gone lost my head totally. Absolutely. But that the day I saw that film, it changed my perceptions of a lot of things. It was a life-changing film.
Yeah,
I'm going
I
to
saw it
say
in
that.
Oxford.
But I better not go in because actually
I
we
saw
could
it.
do a whole thing on that.
I
I
saw
reckon
it in.
it's
I saw it in Oxford.
yeah,
I loved it. It
yeah,
was my.
yeah.
Ridley
It
Scott
was.
at that time was my favorite director because he's a very
It
visual
just
director.
the moment that film came on, the scene right at the beginning, I gasped. I went like that.
Well, yeah, Ridley
It
Scott
was
was
just
an
yeah,
advertising director though, wasn't he? He
I,
did all the adverts, the Hovis adverts.
I just never seen anything like it before. It changed my world. Honestly,
So many good lines in that as well. I remember the line that comes to mind every time I think of Blade Runner is a light that shines twice as bright shines half as long, and you have shone so very, very brightly.
you poetry, poetry. The
Which
film
I
is
mean,
poetry.
how powerful a line is that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The whole film you can dissect it. I don't want to dissect it because it almost too much. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
I know what you mean.
beautiful film. It's the most influential film, and I don't care what anybody says about that film. I love it.
I've got that film
Can't do
15
it. No.
times.
Yeah,
15 times
I
I've
love
bought
it as
that
much.
film.
Controversial. Sorry, Nige. Alien. I put it up there
Oh
with
yeah.
Alien. That's a different one. They're both films I really love. Absolutely.
Nigel and I have a battle over it, but I do but the thing with Nigel is that I always turn around to him and I say, look, I totally get your perspective on
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Right. If somebody keeps throwing things at you which you don't like, then you're
Yeah.
going to learn to despise.
Yeah, I
Right
can see that.
now,
Yeah,
I don't despise anything. I'm probably a little bit more softer
I
around
don't.
it,
I
but there
don't
are
anything.
but
Any.
there are things that I don't like. But nobody, I don't go on a chat engine,
Yeah,
like what we're doing here, and I don't
yeah,
have every week somebody keep
yeah,
throwing in Marvel films at me and
yeah,
King
yeah,
Kong stuff when you're a horror fanatic, right? A
yeah.
horror fanatic wants to talk about horror.
All right, of
And
course.
here's these people that are turning up and they're turning around saying, "Tell me what you think about King Kong versus
Yeah,
Godzilla." He
I
must be
know.
going,
Yeah,
"Ah!"
yeah, yeah,
That's what Nige does.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm interviewing him at the moment.
Yeah, I know you are. I love that
I've done a
series.
part one.
Yeah,
And
brilliant.
what I know about Nige is Nige doesn't use the word hate in the way that that we literally think of the word hate. It's a
Yeah,
word to him. That's how
yeah,
I look at Nige.
yeah.
I don't think he hates anything.
No,
Being quite honest,
well,
he
actually, your interview reveals perhaps a lot more about him. That's what I thought was a very powerful interview. And incidentally, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to Delboy's channel and see this interview with Nige or Rock God
Rock God, yeah.
2004. It is a major thing that is on his channel in terms of, well, it just it's such a great interview. It really is, and that's only part one. But
Yeah.
I was blown away by it, and a lot of people would be, because it just reveals a lot about nostalgia for me. It was all nostalgia because
Yeah.
when you were on about Hector's house, I was shouting out, it was 5 minutes before the news on BBC One. I
Yeah.
watched it. It was in the Magic Roundabout slot. And I was shouting out, and you were going, "Oh, it's on ITV." And no,
I said, do you know what? That's the one show I can't think. Was that on BBC or was that on ITV? Because I couldn't
you kept
remember,
saying
right?
that. I got it's on
Right.
BBC before
Because
the
at the time when you don't know what the answer is, you
yeah,
can't react to it. So I can't
yeah, I know.
research it, right?
Yeah,
Now I'm a very big historian. I mean, I remember like
yeah,
like Larry the Lamb and all of
yeah,
these sort of stuff, right? I mean, I was around in that era, but
yeah.
I can't remember everything.
No,
So, I mean, he was coming up with things like the Brady Bunch, and I was saying, well, the Brady Bunch was something that was more adult orientated. When I was watching children's TV, it was things like
yeah,
Big John, Little John, and things like that. He went, "Oh,
yeah,
Big John, Little John, I remember that." And people go, "How do you remember that?" And I said, "It's because my childhood. There are things that just stick in
yeah,
my mind. Willow
yeah,
the Wisp, Ivor the
yeah.
Engine,
Well, the fact, yeah,
they're
knocking the
all
door.
just there.
There were,
Clapperboard, screen
yeah,
test, run around, Keggers plays pop. Jesus, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and
the
on and on.
double deckers.
The double
Yes,
deckers, and then there was
yeah,
the
oh,
banana
oh,
splits, and we were all
yeah,
talking about this. We
yeah.
could have gone into the which were you? Were you Magpie or were you Blue Peter? And I'm going, Christ, how do you remember Magpie? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
two
oh,
for sorrow,
Magpie, of
three for
course.
joy,
Yeah,
four for
yeah,
Magpie, right?
yeah. I love Magpie.
That was
Magpie
the
was great.
ITV's Blue Peter, and people
It
don't
was. It was
remember
the
it.
more trendier, a bit more daring kind of
Yeah,
Magpie wasn't it?
you
It
know,
was.
swap it.
Yeah.
What Magpie was to Blue Peter. Well, Blue Peter. What Magpie was to Blue Peter is, and his was his swap shop.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
were the same thing on two different channels,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fighting for you to actually watch it. I mean,
Yeah.
I turned around and said, "Stuff Blue Peter, stuff Magpie. I'm watching
Yeah.
How because I
Oh
like
yes.
How.
Oh, I remember
Oh,
Fred Diney.
I
Fred
mean,
Diney.
that's to me.
Yeah.
I went,
And
stuff you, Blue Peter. I want to know how an egg boils and all of this sort of shit. I didn't care about any of this. This how to make Christmas decorations out of clothes hangers. You
yeah.
can stick
And
that in your bottom.
oh God.
You know what I mean?
Right. Richard Pratt McHugh. Yes, that's the London one. John Wayne.
John Wayne McHugh. Yeah,
John
yeah, yeah.
McHugh. Yeah, do you remember? Brannigan is Brannigan is the London set one. Oh, this is what Tony says. I got the BFI blue one. Well worth it. Ah,
The BFI
well,
pressings are usually very good.
So McHugh then his American one then is it?
I get confused because didn't they make a film where there was a sheriff that went to New York and he actually rode a horse through New York and it made it into a TV series. And Brannigan is more
McLeod.
Cloud, wasn't it? That's
Cloud.
right.
The Duel, the bloke who's in Duel,
That's
Dennis
right.
Weaver.
See, so and
Yeah.
then you've got John Wayne, who's a well known to be in westerns, actually turned into a cop. So in New York and in London, and then you go, oh, you know, they're two of the sort of the same, really, but they're not. They're totally different. Gets all wibbly wobbly, doesn't it? Again.
Right, let's get through some of these. Tony, I subscribed to Del a few weeks ago. Brilliant, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Yep. Physical media. I like Christy Eccleston for his witty smile. Oh yeah, he's a great. You love him. Del, what is your channel called? I will sub to you.
Oh, I by the way, I opened up a quick YouTube channel and put my name in so people can actually do it.
I will definitely put a bit more plug in, and after this live as well. And I'm sure Del can show me how to display this.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm not very good technical. Took me ages anyhow to get on here. There's another story. Oh God, there's loads of comments in it. Yeah, better get through a few of these. Christopher Eccleston is from the wrong side of the Pennines, unfortunately. He's a Lancastrian, is he? Yes, he's not a Yorkshireman. Bayek. We did have a Yorkshire woman in the TARDIS.
What was that?
Yes, we had a Yorkshire woman in TARDIS.
What was that comedian? He came up with a line. He said, sophistication. I've been to Leeds.
Bayek Leeds. Aye. Tony York, that is another lower budget Western horror I have about creatures emerging from underground called Burrowers. Oh, that sounds interesting, doesn't it?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. A creature Western feature. Sounds a good, interesting mix, doesn't it?
Sounds like a zombie one.
Yeah. It's a bit like
Tremors.
Everybody's heard of that, and that has got that. Yes, I can get that now. Is there any zombie westerns? I don't know. As Tony, is there any zombie westerns? Yes, Richard, it is. Let's see if it says. I put in Delboy, but only Fools and Horses came up. Oh, I suppose that would do. Yeah. Well, if you haven't got it, I'll send it on to you. I'll email you it. I've got your email. Don't worry. I'll make sure you get it. Just let me. We'll sort it out. Anyhow, don't know of any zombie westerns, but I guess there will be. That's Tony. Does anybody know any zombie westerns?
That's what I mean. I know that there was one that was called Cowboys and Aliens, wasn't it?
Look, you sent it here.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I opened up a web page, but look, I spelled retro zone wrong. Look, because I was typing it quick.
Rest. We need a rest.
But at least you've got the proper spelling. Look next to my name there.
Yeah. So just get the proper spelling on that, and there it is. But we will put it up because you might forget. But yeah, don't worry, we'll sort that out. Zombie westerns might be worth a watch. There would be, but I don't know any. I'm sorry, my horror expertise hasn't.
Not one comes to mind. There's bound sure to be one. It's just I can't think of one.
I bet there is. They're bound to be. Could even be a video nasty of one. I don't know. Who knows? I think there is a zombie western set during the American Civil War. Actually, that does kind of ring a bell a bit. I've seen sort of some cover. That one, I don't know. I wish there was an expert on that. Well, you never know. We might find somebody. Here's the 10th Doctor story we're on about human nature.
Right?
That's it. Yep. I knew our audience would know. Richard, do you know that movie? Sounds interesting. It does. Can't remember the title. There's Abraham Lincoln Vampire. Yeah, I've got that one. I think if you don't mind them instead of zombies. Yeah,
it got panned when it came out. It's actually good, but it's quite a fun film. Actually,
it is. It's good. Yeah, I think you can pick it up really cheap. I picked it up for about £1 somewhere.
Yeah.
Really cheap. Richard, it's called Exit Humanity. Oh no, Richard,
Is it
called
called?
Exit Humanity? Is it called Exit Humanity? I don't know. That need to check that out. You have to do a Google and check on
Yeah.
that. Tony Hawk, I love vampire thrills. Danny Jukes, Genesis of the Daleks was a great story as well. We could do a whole hours worth talking about that. I mean,
the story of the opening season of Tom Baker that shot him into the stratosphere, as far as I'm concerned.
So you would have seen it, wouldn't you, Delboy?
Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant. I saw it. I remember it like it was. Oh.
Well, how can you not forget? How can you not forget the dilemma? You know, with the two wires. All I need to do is put these two wires. But do I have the right? There is so much good that comes out of the Daleks existing that you know it's a classic.
It's brilliant. Oh, I even remember Sarah Jane falling off. Do you remember?
Oh, the scaffolding when she's climbing up the rocket. When she's climbing up the rocket.
So even though you knew she'd be all right, it was so. Great story.
There are things that you remember about it. The other one that's a very stark one in my memory is the interrogation of the Doctor. You know, and he says, you know, if I gave you a drug that would
that's right, and he's like,
kill everybody in the life, it would kill everybody in the universe, would you invent it? He went, that would set me up above the gods. You know, and I'm going, I mean, it just all comes back to you, and you go, "Whoa, this is strong stuff."
And just something for somebody. And Russell T Davis, wants to get rid of Davros and change him.
Oh yeah,
what an
can't
idiot.
have wheelchairs anymore because that's terrible. That is in this nature.
Well, I mean, that's what you have to call him.
Anybody in a wheelchair is now a menace. Oh, flipping out!
You can't believe it. If you were making it up, oh dear. It's just does he realize how stupid that was? Anyhow, oh yeah, sorry, I like the Crotons. Yeah, Crotons are all right. They get a lot of
Dominators, the Crotons, all that same season, isn't it?
They do get a bit of knocking, I remember at the time, but I like the Crotons. You can't beat them, especially as the Doctor is beaten by Zoe in the intelligence test, and he's a bit put out about it. It's really funny. They did the 4.3 screen with Star Trek as they filmed in a different ratio. It's explained more in the special features. All right. Yeah.
You see, remember though that Star Trek is an American show and it was filmed.
Yeah.
It was done on film. So you're using a different camera method anyway.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a country that actually is part of a studio, a film studio at that. BBC doesn't have any connection with Shepperton or Pinewood.
Yeah,
they have, you know, they are a broadcaster of a TV medium,
and
that's what I'm trying to get at.
And they weren't filming in color, which is an interesting part. They were, you know, it's all black and white.
If you wanted to do a close up and a wide angle, they had a circular lens with three cameras.
Yeah,
and it circled round. You know, you had the cameraman had to turn the camera lens round to do a close-up shot, and then turn it around to the other one that will do a wide shot.
Yeah,
that's how archaic their cameras were.
The one thing I will say about Doctor Who and a lot of good BBC plays and television is it created some great directors who had to use their imaginations and low budgets and how to create things. And of course, Doctor Who, as we know, was the perfect place. If you wanted a good training on low budgets, go to Doctor Who and you could do all sorts. They discovered all sorts. You know, they could become the Hitchcocks of creativity in terms of directing TV stories. Absolutely brilliant. Does anyone remember when the TV would go static late at night? When we had you remember you had the national anthem, of course.
You had the national anthem,
and they go.
You would have a presenter coming on saying, "We're now closing down for the evening, and we'll now play the national anthem." And then basically it would then go static,
Yeah.
Or you'd have a picture of the test card with that little girl with a chalkboard drawing noughts and crosses or something on it.
It's just reminding me of something. Do you remember of a show called Not the 9 o'clock News? With,
Of course I do, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember they did that? He did the thing where it goes the static noise.
Yeah.
He showed him on. It's so funny that I remember that one.
I used to watch Not the 9 o'clock News. I also
brilliant.
liked things like Drop the Dead Donkey and a load of other stuff. I found them really
Yes,
amusing because they were satires of media.
Yeah,
so I was just
right.
soaking it up, really.
Oh, actually, Not the 9 o'clock News was a must watch. It was one of those things.
Well, there's certain people that will always turn around and say, "What do you remember about Not the 9 o'clock News?" I remember, you know, I've got his name now. Plays Mr. Bean and Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson walking into a lamppost. He's looking at the camera and just walks into a lamppost. I remember him doing an interview in a monkey suit, and they said, "You want to be in this monkey suit? I'll tell you what it's like being a flipping ape. It's bloody awful being an ape. You want to be in this bloody, and all of that." And then I remember the songs that they used to do at the end. They did a satire song at the end,
Yeah, they were, and they were often quite spot on. I remember the Oswald Mosley died, and they did a brilliant song because there was all the hypocrisy of some people.
Pamela Stevens? Was it Pamela Stevens?
It was married to Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly, that's the connection, isn't it? That's right.
But there were so many. If anybody has not seen Not the 9 o'clock News, look, I don't know if YouTube has got any, but I think you can still get it on DVD. It's well worth.
Yeah, you can get it on DVD
now. It's well worth checking out.
I got the box set. I've got the box set of that.
Yeah, it's a really good program. Some of it was topical, therefore you might not get it. But there were a lot of things that were just.
It's where Melon Griff came from, as far as I'm concerned, which was a follow-on.
Yeah. Tony says, I remember the close down at night when they played the national anthem. You can't
the only thing I was going to say was Griff Rhys-Jones and Mel Smith did a fantastic sketch, Gandhi the Musical.
Oh, wow. And I've got one, there's another one. Do you remember the hi-fi shop? I couldn't stop laughing at that. Because my brother was an hi-fi geek and I wasn't. And
I remember Griff Rhys-Jones did a Richard Attenborough impression. He said, "I've written the script for Gandhi the musical," and he's got this song, and he actually sings the song, and he says, "I was walking down the beach late one day, feeling a little bit randy. When who should I see swim in the sea? If it hurt me, old mate, Gandhi." And I'm going, bloody hell, that's marvelous.
Could you imagine the complaints you might have got from Hindus about that? Oh my God. Yeah.
Who should I see swimming in the sea if it ain't the old mate Gandhi?
There's no way they would do that now. Absolutely. Tony York, the 90s were the best times for TV. Well, I think because you're younger. For us, for me, it's the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The problem for me, I know it's more for you, is the 80s, of course. I was going into adulthood and going out into pubs and drinking and getting pissed.
I was going to secondary school, you see, at the beginning of the 80s.
So I did. Some of the TV shows then start to fade away. They don't mean as much, because of me being earlier. Anything from probably 1976-7 when I started going out underage drinking and starting to go to live music, live gigs, then everything changed. Going out.
Because from your perspective, when you talk about cartoons, just as an example, you'd be thinking of Top Cat, Scooby Doo, and Hong Kong Phooey. And people that are a little bit younger than me, they'd be thinking Thundercats.
Yes, they will.
Jason the Wheeled Warriors.
Extremely popular. Masters of the Universe.
Battle of the Planets.
Yeah. Well, to me, to blank.
Yeah, because that's a person that's growing up in secondary school, and you're now left secondary school, and you're going into adulthood, into the real world. So you're getting home at 5 o'clock, and children's TV's finished.
Yeah, and to be honest, the only TV I really watched in that era, I still was watching Doctor Who. Doctor Who has always been with me.
Well, that was a Saturday, wasn't it, for a start?
Yeah, and of course it got moved, and there was a right ruckus in our house as well with the.
That conflicts with Emmerdale Farm.
And Star Trek as well, when that was in the wrong place. Oh dear. Anyhow, so for me, the television was something like Doctor Who, and then it would be Old Grey Whistle Test. That's why I'm still have my passion about music. So I've been watching that since 1972, and because of interest in music, it was even stronger.
Closest modern version of the Old Grey Whistle Test is really the Tube on Channel 4.
Oh, the Tube.
That's the closest thing to the Old Grey Whistle Test for a modern audience, is what I'm.
Do you know what I think is so sad? I've got it. They've only released the first season of the Tube on DVD, and it's really good. I've got it, but I wish they'd released the others. Because there was some cracking stuff on there.
There's some great interviews on there, and these people that are interviewed are now dead.
Yeah, it's so sad. I've got that in my collection, but I watch it and I think, oh, I'd love to have more on that. Anyway, Tony, we've had that one, and Richard Brown. I got Star Trek season 1 on DVD for $3.98 from Amazon last year, brand new. Well, you did well at $3.98.
The amount of times I've bought Star Trek.
That's excellent.
I've bought the original season of Star Trek on videotape when it came out on 2 episodes.
Did you have it in the 2 episodes?
Right.
Yeah.
Then I bought the DVDs, which were were just standard DVDs.
Yeah.
Then I bought the box sets that came in the black packaging, red, yellow, and blue.
Yeah.
Then I bought the HD before Blu-ray came out, which had the Blu-ray on one side and the DVD on the other, because it was a multi-format.
Yeah,
I bought the Blu-ray editions with the special effects, where you could watch the original, or you could actually watch with the new special effects added to it. It goes on and on and on. In fact, the only thing they haven't done yet with Star Trek is 4K, and that's only the movies at the moment. They haven't done 4K TV series yet, but it's just round the corner. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Oh, I'm sure. So. I'm very sure on that. Yeah. Right. Let's have a look. Next. I have Blackadder on VHS and DVD too. It's a childhood favorite. Yeah, of course. Definitely. Richard, that's a good price. The Next Generation is amazing quality on Blu-ray, but ratio still 4:3, not like the DVDs. Richard Brown, probably be getting the Next Generation DVDs on Blu-ray next. I don't think they're too badly priced at Blu-ray, actually.
Yeah, they've done a really good job, because they spent an awful lot of money doing the special effects again for the Blu-ray release.
Can I just? I've got to go to the toilet. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
It's not very right, but you can carry on.
No, I'll talk about that for a little bit. Yeah. So it's funny, but there was going to be a Paramount Plus TV show, and it never came out until much later on. And I know that they spent an awful lot of money doing the special effects for the Blu-ray release. And I remember they did an advert for Star Trek: The Next Generation on Blu-ray, and they had to sell season 1's episodes to get the money back to do season 2, and it took an absolute age to get all 7 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation on Blu-ray. Then, of course, Sci-Fi and channels like that could show it on TV, because we were all up to high def by then, and they showed the new enhanced Star Trek ones. And then people were turning around and saying, well, when are you going to start doing Deep Space Nine and Voyager? And even now we're waiting for that. In fact, the only reason we got Star Trek the Motion Picture director's cut as 4K was they spent quite a few million doing it, and then they started Paramount Plus up and actually brought the motion picture out as a limited run in the cinema. And all the money that came from the subscription for Paramount Plus and the 4K release is hopefully supposed to start off a resurgence of Star Trek. But again, we haven't had Voyager or Deep Space Nine Blu-ray yet. So I don't know where they're going to get the money from, because they've now cancelled Picard, and it's going to be turning into, I don't know, I think they're doing a sort of Voyager, but with 7 of 9, I think, is the way they're going with that. You've got Strange New Worlds, which is about the closest you're going to get to a good Star Trek at the moment. I'm not really a big fan of Lower Decks, I have to say, even though I'll watch any Star Trek, so that's all right. But I'm a bit. I've seen so many YouTube videos showing the opening credits to Voyager done in 4K, and they look gorgeous. And I just think to myself, when are you actually ever going to get round to doing this, Paramount? Because you keep teasing us by saying we're just waiting for the money to do this. You got the money. You're Paramount. You're just being gits. That's how I look at it. So I haven't really got much else to say. I've got no words other than probably be getting the next generation DVDs or Blu-rays next. I again bought the next generation on VHS tape in a 2-episode format. How many? There was 170 odd episodes, was there? So that would have got, I don't know how many tapes. You have to do the maths. 2 into 170 something.
Oh gosh. It filled up a lot of shelves.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the very early releases of the original Star Trek series on VHS? There were just 2 episodes, and as I remember, they didn't start at the beginning, did they? On sale.
Oh no, you got 2 episodes, and they weren't even from the same season.
Yeah.
I remember one had Dagger of the Mind and something, and then it had it had something like a Mock Time or something, and you're going, what the hell? One's season 2 and the other one's season 1. One's a psychological one on a penile planet. One's Spock can't get his end away with a girl or something. It got the 7-year itch.
It very well at all. No. W.H. Smith's, I remember, because W.H. Smith's on VHS before the law came in was very interesting. They were selling ones before the law, and I remember seeing Straw Dogs on, I think it was called Channel 5 label.
Yeah. The budget label. Wasn't that the budget label?
Yes, and it was Straw Dogs before. As soon as the act got in, that wouldn't have been on sale.
Had a gold rim around it, didn't it?
Yeah,
gold emblem.
It was the Fog, which was probably one of my very early VHS tapes with Revenge of the Cybermen that I bought. It's the Fog. I think it was really cheap, and that was the first one. I remember playing that a lot, and that was on that Channel 5 label. Call it. Yeah. But it's interesting that this was all Smith selling these before. You didn't have a certificate or anything, but then they brought in the law. But Straw Dogs, then you couldn't get it. It was like banned. But they were selling it before it got banned. That, but obviously we're same with rental stores, as we know. They must have been initially selling all these. And that's another story. But yeah, that's interesting. Physical medium life. I think it's an age thing. I prefer 70s programs, usually what you remember when you're young. Yeah, it's true. It is an age thing. I mean, I obviously remember a lot of things in the 60s. The 60s, though I always say 70s is because I was 10 in 1970, so 20 by end of decade. So the 70s was probably more than the 60s. But yeah, the 60s, I've got big, I think because of my dad and my mum, their interest in taking me to see films. And just generally the 60s are very much still in there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I was reading today about Diana Rigg, and of course, it was bringing it all back about
Oh, the
Diana Rigg,
Avengers.
one of the most beautiful women that you could ever see. And I was thinking, well, she was probably one of my first sexual awakenings.
My
of watching
favorite film
TV,
of Diana Rigg
you know?
is Theatre of Blood.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, brilliant. And what a film that is. Yeah, but I was thinking, actually, when I read about her personal life, there's a lot of
Yeah.
sadness and a lot of problems in her personal life. But
Wasn't she? You know, there's a quality of actress when they introduce you into such a high profile show as Game of Thrones.
yes, exactly.
Where
She,
I mean,
I
which
never
basically
seen
sort
that.
of
But
ends her career. But I mean,
what a way!
if you ever see a scene with Diana Rigg in Game of Thrones, she steals that scene. It's like,
And
I don't care about any other actor in it. I'm drawn to you, and I don't know what it is. And I'll tell you what it is. It's quality. That's what it
yeah,
is.
and guess what? Her last film is one of my favorite films, which is Last Night in Soho.
Last Night Soho, yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow! The
And
fact
isn't
that
that a great? Isn't that a great
ending
4K disc as well? For that,
beautiful
that
film. The
pops.
music. If I was to pick that as one of the great horror films, people say, "Oh, they don't make horror films like they used to." Well, I
No,
think Last Night in Soho is a good example
yeah,
where they do make good horror films still, because it's there, the writing, no interference from studios. You can
yeah.
still get a
We had a
good,
pretty good successful year. I
yeah,
think that came out as well, or very very close together to the film Driver, Baby
yes.
Driver, Baby Driver. And
There was a whole,
I just know that they're very close together. And I was going, these are all indie small films, and they're
yeah,
better than this A+ shit that I've been
yeah,
buying.
yeah.
That's all I
And
can think about.
of course, Matt Smith is in
Oh, of course, he does. He does a
Last Night
great
in
dance
Soho.
scene, doesn't he? The dance
and,
scene in that
and
is
he's a
just
baddie.
amazing.
He's not a nice character at all in it, is he? He's a real baddie. But seeing it was so sad, seeing that as a last film. But then on the other hand, I thought, well, at least she's ended not on a terrible film.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah,
actors and actresses, their last film is, oh dear, they wish they had.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, look at Bruce Willis. He made such great films, but towards the end, he was making all these, not very good films.
Anything to keep
Yeah,
the money coming in. Yeah,
yeah. It's
basically.
sad. It's so sad but that again, that's another sort of story.
It made me wonder, because in one of the,
Yeah,
I think they said in one Die Hard film, there was something like, I think Bruce Willis had about 10 lines in that film,
yeah,
and I was turning around and
yeah,
saying, I wonder if that was anything to do with his medical condition.
yeah,
Because I remember there was an interview he did, and he just basically said hardly anything. It was like,
yeah.
I
I
just
think.
don't want to talk about it. What do you mean? That's a bad title for a film. It's a bad day to
Yeah,
die hard or something. I don't know
yeah.
what you're talking about. And I wonder if that was the start of the conflict that he's
I
got with
think.
his
Yeah,
disease. And
yeah.
he wasn't being moody at all. That's just,
And I like him a lot because his career is
moonlighting and all
fascinating.
that. Yeah.
And also he's been in some great films people forget
Hudson
about.
Hawk.
Some really
I
great
remember
films.
Hudson Hawk. Bloody
I
hell.
haven't seen Hudson Hawk. I always think of 12 Monkeys and
Oh, wow.
absolutely love 12 Monkeys.
Fifth
Absolutely love that.
Element and all that sort of
Films,
stuff.
and of
The
course
thing
Sixth
about
Sense.
Hudson
Yeah.
Hawk is he sings songs to do robberies.
I must watch that sometime. I must get around
So
to
he's
watching
singing the
that. Yeah.
song, "Would you like to swing on a star?"
Oh,
And he's doing a robbery because that's how he remembers where all the trap lines are for when he's
oh,
actually doing a robbery in a museum
good.
or something, right?
Yeah.
So he's singing, so
Yeah. Yeah.
a fish is an
Yeah.
animal, and then he's
Yeah.
doing this dance routine because that's how he gets through the laser lights and everything.
That
But it got
fascinating.
panned. It got panned, that
It
film.
sounds good.
I bought that on Laserdisc.
Yeah. Wow. There you go. Yeah. I know you're a big collector. Oh,
Jesus.
yeah. Right. Let's have a look here.
Yeah, I'm slowing you down, Ian, so I'm going to shut up
Oh,
until
no,
you.
it's all right. I'm trying to get it's worth the upgrade. The Enterprise is stunning in high definition. Underrated series. It's only because they messed it up at the end that I think it gets a bad thing, because the ending was a mess up, unfortunately. You'd have thought they could have done a better ending because they knew it was going to end. And anyhow, I won't go too much into that because that's another time, another place about Enterprise, because it's good, underrated, I think, maybe. Tony Hawk, I prefer all shows 90s and before early 2000s. Well, that you see, that be your era. That's very much,
Yeah. Well, actually,
yeah.
when somebody comes out with a comment like that, 90s
Yeah.
and before the early 2000s, I can usually guess their age. I would reckon that you're probably in your mid 30s, early 40s with a statement like that.
That's right. Yeah, you could date stamp the date of when people's.
If you think 80s is the best era, then generally you're in your 50s. If you think the 70s is usually better, you're usually in your 60s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's what it is. It's those years from going into your teenage years, I think, and to that.
Well, I put it down to Nigel. I turned around and said that there's a reason that people say that the 80s is the best decade ever, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that I call the 80s the best decade ever is because it's the years that I went to secondary school and the years at the end of the 80s where I was actually out in the real world doing work. Because some people went to university and college, I went to work.
Exactly.
So all I'm saying is I was soaking in information when it came to school, and I was soaking in experience in regards to girls, drinking, going out, watching TV, films in the later part.
Yeah.
And that would be the same for somebody who's 10 years older in the 70s. They would have been going to secondary school at the earliest.
Yeah, my first job was in the 70s, and it was after school. And in the sixth form, I worked at Morrison's when it was a Yorkshire. Yorkshire company was Morrison's, and it was in Leeds, right in the city centre. And our school, I just went and worked in there, and I learned a lot. It's funny. I don't regret working in Morrison's. Oh, I learned a hell of a lot in that Morrison's as a life experience. But it funded. You see, the reason here, it funded my record fanaticism. I was buying, and it funded going out for a drink, and it funded all the things that a teenager and going to gigs, of course. And even though gigs were quite cheap,
I will follow up my comment though with a something that basically explains what I just said, because I believe I am right in the fact that anybody that's going to school in the secondary school and goes that decade is their decade, right?
Yeah.
TV and film transcends that statement, right?
Yeah.
Because some of my vivid memories of stuff in the 70s. I used to watch Crown Court. In the afternoon, and that was followed by General Hospital.
Yeah. Well,
and then after that, there'd be a Norman Wisdom film on, right? All I'm saying is that I went to school, and if I was sick and I was off school, I was in bed. And if I was in bed when my mum went off to work, I'd go downstairs, put the telly on, and what would I be watching? I'd be watching Pebble Mill at 1, Crown Court, General Hospital, a Norman Wisdom film.
Yeah.
And it would probably be one of the later Norman Osborn films, like "What's So Good for the Goose is Good for the Gander," or something like that, right? It would be something like that. And therefore, when I think of the 80s and it's more vivid, I'm still going, but I love that stuff in the 70s, which is why I like things like the Clangers. The Clangers weren't around in the 80s.
It's funny. I reviewed a certain story this week.
And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, "You got to understand, there was only like 8 episodes of Bagpuss. You may think there were 32. You may think there were 50.
Yeah,
right. There was only 13 episodes of Mr. Ben.
Yeah,
it's just and Finger Bobs.
Yeah,
was a shoestring TV thing with paper mache and a glove.
Yeah,
and all that sort of stuff.
I know. It's so simple. really simple and cheap. But I was thinking it is true because the 60s, I do, because I've got I did have, I don't have now, but I still have a good memory of the 60s and my childhood. My earliest childhood memories are from probably about 3-year-old, 3-year-old. And the first film I ever saw, it was such a good film. I'm really kind of proud that I saw it. Zulu. Zulu
Well,
was the
that's the
first
same as my
film.
friend Mainmeister. He says Zulu's his favorite film. He
And
used to
it's
watch
the
it with his
first
dad.
film that my dad took me to see. I knew it'd be my dad because he was all into war films and that. But I loved it. Zulu. I'd probably be about 4 or 5. I'm not quite 100% sure, but it was probably on because they used to be at the cinema quite a long time, films then. It wouldn't have been probably when it was released. It was such a big film, Zulu. It was on months and
Yeah.
months.
So everybody turns around and says that's Michael Caine's first film, right? Which it's not.
No, it's not.
Right? Because Mainmeister, he actually turned around and said, "Yeah, that was Michael Caine's." I said, "No, it was his breakout film."
That's right. Yeah.
What's really surprising about Zulu is that Michael Caine, when you think about how many years he was in films before Zulu came out, it scares you.
Yeah.
Because he was in films for 10 years.
Yes.
10 years.
Oliver Reed
Zulu came out.
It quite very similar to Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed is in so many films going back to 50s, I think, even that nobody knows about hardly.
He's uncredited in a lot of these films, but what I'm saying is he did 6 or 7 films, but he did them over 10 years. And you think to yourself, you're telling me that the first time that you think you saw Michael Caine was Zulu? You're wrong.
Yes. And
you
of course,
wrong. You are desperately wrong.
And you know what is interesting, of course, the role that he's playing a posh, upper class kind of part, which is brilliant.
From East End of London, bloody hell, you couldn't get much further away.
Do you know what it is, I think, with Zulu, which really caught my imagination? I wasn't scared or anything. I loved it. You know, the Zulus are quite frightening. They really were quite frightening. I loved it. And that maybe led me into my imagination with horror, going into horror as well. So Zulu for me is such an important film. And I
saw Zulu before Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia became my favorite film.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But Zulu is equally good. And if somebody was to ask you which one do you prefer, Zulu or Lawrence of Arabia, I'll tell you what, I have to think hard.
Yeah.
But Lawrence of Arabia, I think, pips it probably because of the score.
Yeah, and yeah. For me, it's the other. It's because it's sentimentality being the first film.
Nostalgia, sentimentality.
Yeah, it's like people say
glasses, blah blah blah.
What's your favorite Bond film? And now I have to struggle because my first Bond film I saw was You Only Live Twice. And what a film to see is your first Bond film. It's got everything. It's got the villain, Donald Pleasance. It's got the volcano. It's got space in it. It's got everything.
Yeah.
And I love it still.
Isn't that the one, though, that he had the most arguments with?
Sorry?
Isn't that the one that he had the most arguments with in the...
There were arguments, but it was really the...
with Broccoli, wasn't it?
Yeah. Some people say he's still not, a heart is in it, but I think he's not bad. And also there's the thing about him, because he puts the bit where he's looking oriental in it, and there's people saying that. But I don't think it's not. You compare it with Diamonds Are Forever, and he's totally disinterested in Diamonds Are Forever. It's just
first time I saw Bond at the pictures was The Spy Who Loved Me.
Oh, that's a good
That was the first one I saw in the pictures.
Yeah. A lot of people of your era would love Roger Moore. For me, it probably is Connery. But I saw, it's funny because I like Dr. No a lot. But I saw Dr. No.
Weird film, though, that one. It's totally tone different to all the other films.
That's probably why I like it. But I like the underground bass. I like a lot about the vibe, and also Undress. And of course, Undress together. But I saw Dr.
Christopher Lee and Ian Fleming were best buddies, weren't they?
Yeah. I saw Dr. No with Thunderball. It was on what they used to
Thunderball.
do later on. Is put the re-release films quite a lot, didn't they? And then they'd put them in double bills. It's like they did that with the Planet of the Apes films. They'd put them together, and you saw them at the cinema. And for some reason, they thought Thunderball goes with Doctor No. So From Russia with Love never got shown together with Doctor No. I don't know. Maybe they felt the style tone was a bit different. But so in terms of sentimentality, it's definitely, and I still say it's got it again. It paved the way with my imagination. Did You Only Live Twice, because it's got a lot of things I really like, and why I like Bond was there's elements of fantasy. That's why I'm not really a fan of Daniel Craig, because Daniel Craig kind of stabs in all the gets rid of all the fantasy.
He's got the right facial expressions.
Yeah,
but he's not the Bond that I know of Bond to be.
The villains are not there. The big bad and the bases. It's only in the very last one which he dies with we see this big base and that, but we don't get the same. It's not the same. As whereas before that, you always had a bit of element of fantasy in it. Even with the one that people point at, which is the one that everybody likes, is his name has just escaped me for a second. That did 2 films. You know, the Bond that did 2 films that people like. My brain has gone.
What, you mean where Sean Connery came back in?
No. After Roger Moore.
Yeah.
The James Bond who did 2. He appeared in Doctor Who as well. I kick myself. I should know his name. Somebody in thing. Everybody talks about him and says he's the best that should have been. He only did 2 films, but he was in that hiatus period before Brosnan.
I'm not sure where you're getting with that. What a person that was in a Bond film and Doctor Who, or are you talking about a person who played Bond? What are we talking about?
Yeah, he was James Bond, and he played in Doctor Who as a Time Lord.
Well, was it in Casino Royale then? Because I don't know any. The only people that have played Bond is Connery, Lazenby.
Yeah, it's the other one. Yeah, I'll kick myself in a minute.
Oh, are you talking about? Oh, I know what you were talking about. No, you're talking about the. He was only in 2 Bond films.
That's right. And everybody likes him. Everybody say, "Oh, that's how."
He was in Flash Gordon.
Yes. Let's see. Trying to think of his name.
Timothy Dalton.
Yes, at last we've got there. Thank God.
He was a high from Gallifrey, wasn't he? He was a high.
My brain. Oh dear. But a lot of people, he's become the one that people like.
I'm sweating, you know.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think of the name. I mean, my brain's mushed.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the best thing about Bond for me has always been the music, because my dad loves soundtracks, and so did I.
You're right. You are.
So when it comes, when I turn around and I say about Lawrence of Arabia and Zulu, right? You got 2 fantastic composers here. You got Maurice Jarre for Lawrence of Arabia. You got John Barry for Zulu.
Yes.
Now, John Barry is an incredible composer. But the reason I said about Lawrence of Arabia, and it's the score that pips it, is because Maurice Jarre did a score that every time I listen to it, the only thing I can think about is sweeping sand dunes.
Yeah.
Right? In Zulu, it's a very much of a battle type score. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really, for me, it doesn't have that memory for it.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
John Barry came from a very jazz background, if I remember rightly. He was part of the 60s swing scene.
Yeah. That's jazz is very much a 60s thing. Well, the first part of the 60s, everything is got a jazz.
I love John Barry scores. I mean, he did. I mean, when you think about it, he's done Somewhere in Time. He's done Born Free, loads of Bonds.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, the guy's up there in the stratosphere. You talk about Maurice Jarre, he's done less. Yeah. But when you talk about Lawrence of Arabia. Even Steven Spielberg turns around and says that was his favorite film.
Of
It had its
course,
famous favorite music in it.
it's
It
just
had
something pretty special.
so
And also people think, they probably it's considered an old-fashioned classic. Dare I use that word? But it's not. You can watch that. In a way, it's like I've not seen it, but the big film that we had. You see, my brain's going. The one that went on. We've just had with Barbie and.
Yeah.
See, my brain is mashed. I can't even think of it.
You're going to have to start reading out some questions, otherwise we're going to be until about 12 midnight.
Yeah, I need somebody to come and prompt me. I need a prompt. Standard Blu-ray now 4K. How many times do we need a change in our discs?
Yeah,
I understand, Charles. I get your point, because I'm even for financial reasons now thinking, do I really need to get this in 4K? And sometimes I'm now making decisions where I'm thinking, no, I'm quite happy with the Blu-ray, so I'm going to stick with Blu-ray. Obviously, sometimes there's certain special films that I might feel I want the upgrade, but is it always necessary? I know it's been argued.
If I remember rightly, a 4K disc is actually a triple layered Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So you're using the same laser, a new manufacture process for the disc, and you've got a disc now that can store, I think it's like 100 gig. I think that's the max it can store. If you go to 8K next,
that's not gonna. No,
you're going to need a new hardware.
Yeah, we're not going to see any difference.
Well, there's no way that you can store on a disc of that nature. 200 gig of information.
Yeah,
you're going to need to have memory sticks and all that sort of stuff as a way of selling your stuff, because there's no such thing as a holographic laser that people can put inside their player or come up with a new mechanism. The reason that 4K was successful is because all of the manufacturing plants are set up for Blu-ray, and all you're doing is doing a triple layer disc.
Yeah.
So it's the same manufactured, slightly different process, but the same plants and the same materials.
Yeah, I can understand. Like, you've heard Keith, who's a big lover of 4K, he does brilliant reviews, brilliant channel.
Oh, Euphoria Pictures, Keith.
But I've heard him say, well, yes, if you 4K, no matter against the Blu-ray, is an upgrade, but you've got to measure it in terms of also the world of finance and the world that you're in. And is it that it may be slightly, but it may not always be very noticeable that much in terms of the equipment you've got, the TV you've got. It may not be, and therefore sometimes you've got to decide. I mean,
there are people out there that have got a 4K telly that can't afford a 4K Blu-ray player, right? So they've got a mix. They've got a Blu-ray player with a 4K TV, or they've got a 4K player because they had to go out and buy a player because their last one bust. And they've still only got a Blu-ray telly, a high-def telly. So Keith, he's in a bit of a privileged situation. He's got some money behind him, and he can afford that stuff.
He's right. I mean, he's probably right. He is probably right.
But I tell you what, the one thing that I will totally back up Euphoria Pictures and Keith. I've talked to the guy. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, I know he is.
Is that the people that moan about picture quality, it gets on your nerves.
Yeah, I agree.
We're fighting at the moment to be able to have physical media because they all want us to go to streaming. And here we are moaning and saying, "What's this piece of shit? It hasn't got any grain in it. It hasn't got
like grain. I like grain. Who doesn't like? Who should like grain? We should like grain."
What I'm saying is, love the fact it's there.
Yeah. Yes. What it is I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you have to sometimes in life look at what you've got and how you adapt with what you've got, and that's how I'm doing it financially. Because have you noticed now that the 4Ks, not all companies are doing it, but some companies now are the 30 quid, even standard 4K, which there weren't that when we started out. There were
They're
about
about
20
5 or
quid.
more than Blu-ray, weren't they?
Yeah.
About 5 or more than Blu-ray.
And that has just happened quite recently, and that they're going to creep over, I'm sure, with steelbooks as well, because you know more about them. Is that they've started to go up. So you can understand if I'm faced with Megan, right, which is a film which I've got on Blu-ray, am I going to get the 4K upgrade? I may love to, but it doesn't make sense.
People
I'm
were
really
pissed off.
happy
People
with
were pissed off
Blu-ray.
with Megan though, because
I know what they did.
It only came out on a Blu-ray medium.
Right.
Yeah, it had a 4K streaming
I can understand that.
copy.
But
and then they brought out the 4K on it. You're going, well, bloody hell.
Yeah, I can understand that. Definitely. But in the world of a lot of people, and I think you've got to accept that, not everybody can afford all this every month. I mean, I see some people, and good luck to them, great people. They come out an absolute stack of new releases of they bought in the month, and I'm going, whoo, that must be about 200 or 300 quid or more, even.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of money, to especially now in certain times. And well, good luck. I mean, if I had that amount of money, I'd probably do the same. But what I'm saying is that everybody has to just adopt what fits you. I do buy 4Ks. I still love to buy 4Ks, but I have to be a bit more choosy, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm debating, but I probably will get it, whether to get Aliens when it comes out in this country on 4K. I've got Alien.
It's in 3 weeks. It's in 3 weeks' time. It's in 3 weeks' time.
I probably will end up getting it because I, of course, rate Alien above Aliens, but I know it'll look good. And it's like I've got Alien, and it matches having that.
Yeah.
So I probably will get Aliens. It depends on what.
The way I look at it is this: eventually, they're going to do another box set of Alien films, 1 to 6, and it's going to have all the 4K releases in there and all that sort of money. If you couldn't afford to buy it, don't be upset about it, because I'm telling you now, next year there'll be a steelbook of it, right? So you'll be buying it again, and then the following year there'll be the here's the first 3 Alien films in a box set.
Do Alien 3 and
whatever it is, because Alien 3 will be the next one that they'll need to do a 4K of.
Yeah. So that does make me think now. You've actually planted a seed in my mind there.
The other thing is that Alien 3 probably is approaching an anniversary in the 5s, so it'll be either 20 years old or 25 years old or whatever. And again, it'll come out as a 4K in a steelbook or something, because it's celebrating its 25th anniversary or something.
Yeah,
that's why everybody predicts that this year, right, which is 2024, matches with 84. And you have to look at the list of films in 84. And you go, oh, right, so we're going to get a steelbook of Nightmare on Elm Street. We're going to get all of You look down the list and you go, Christ, I better save some money up, because I tell you now, there's going to be a 40th anniversary of this. Yeah. It doesn't take a genius. And then what's going to happen in 85? It's going to be the 40th anniversary of every film in 85.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
It's not hard to work out, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Anyhow, I was just thinking,
come on.
Alien 3 is another film I will defend.
David Fincher, first David Fincher film.
It didn't half get a savage attack on that live stream on Friday.
Yeah, but you like it because you like it because there's a Yorkshireman in it.
Well, that might help, but even so, there's a lot of other things I like about it. But you're right, the fact that Brian Glover. I was shouting at the telly because at first they didn't know. I was going, Brian Glover, wake up.
Brian Glover. The last time I saw you, you were in Porridge eating light bulbs with Fletcher.
And then eventually they got it. Nige, I think, got it. And I was shouting before. I said, how dare you?
We love Nige. Nige, we love you, mate. We love you.
Yeah. But I need somebody outside of me to shout at me. There's people probably shouting at the same. Why can't you remember it's Timothy Dalton? Yeah, sorry, Timothy Dalton. Yes, right. I'm relatively new to 4K and questioning the value of with the prices. I know what you mean. Maybe someone with a very expensive setup can justify it more.
Yeah,
He's got a point, Tony. I think you've got a point. Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's spot on. If you
yeah,
buy yourself a 4K player and you buy yourself a 4K TV, you
yeah.
think to yourself, "What am I buying a Blu-ray?"
Mm.
You
Mm.
like that? Yeah,
Yeah,
well, obviously, I want to pair the
yeah,
picture with the player.
yeah,
And so far, and then later on it'll be and it's got to have the sound bar for Dolby Atmos as well. And when you
yeah,
start throwing that into it, you start going into how much money have you got?
yeah.
And
Exactly.
of course, the industry thinks that if you can afford that telly and afford that player and afford that
You can
sound bar,
afford
you
all
must be
the
able
other
to
things.
afford this then.
Yes,
Because I tell you what, we're
exactly.
only putting it up by a fiver, but that's
Yeah,
how it works. That's how
there is.
it's greed, greed, greed.
Yeah,
So,
you are right.
well,
It's a yeah,
you'll remember this, and I'm just going to end it there.
yeah,
The reason CDs were so expensive, right, when
yeah,
they came out, right, the process for making them was cheaper. But
yeah,
the industry came out and says it may be cheaper, but we're still recouping the loss of the oil shortage of the 70s.
yes,
So we have to put the
yeah,
price up because we need
yeah,
to recoup that money.
yeah,
What a lie.
yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a difference between 1970 and 1982 for the CD
yeah,
player.
yeah.
And you're telling me in 12 years you haven't recouped the money from
I
the
know.
oil shortage of the
It's
70s?
yeah,
What a load of bollocks. I've never heard so
exactly.
much in my life. So when somebody turns around and says to me, "Oh, but the process is so much more expensive to make a 4K," I say, "That's rubbish. It's the same process you've been making Blu-rays over the last 6 years."
Yeah, I think you're right. There is one thing, a question I'll just throw out, and it's something I might look at another time. Is do you think nowadays that there's a lot more 4K releases have been released, and it's not as exciting anymore as it was when
Yeah.
they first came out? I'll leave that point because I think it was more exciting. When people said, "Do you get excited by such a release?" Oh yeah, but when it happened a few years ago, at time of pandemic, it was exciting because there weren't that many being released, and you really look forward to them. Anyway,
Shall I tell you the most excitement I ever had? And I'll tell you what era it was as well. It was the late 80s, early 90s. Nothing, even now, will ever excite me in the same way as when the first widescreen VHS tapes came out.
yeah, I remember getting them. I found them
Right?
exciting.
I bought myself a big, massive, I'd say, fuck off,
Yeah,
TV, a Philips 32-inch widescreen. It was by Philips
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Philips, right? And suddenly 20th Century Fox came out and said, for the first time ever, Star Wars in widescreen.
yeah.
And it showed you this bombastic thing, it
Oh,
said
I
pan and
loved it.
scan, and it
Yeah.
suddenly went, duh, 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 and you saw these borders, and
Oh,
it was going, and I was going,
yeah,
the introduction of those widescreen films, and I even remember the lineup. It was Star Wars, Die Hard, and I think it was a Bond film,
yeah,
right? And then every month there was 3 new widescreen
yeah,
films that were coming out on that line, and it was from the 20th Century Fox line. And I've had laserdiscs, Blu-rays, DVDs, and everything, and nothing beat the excitement of me going, "Wow, I've got a widescreen film for the first
wow.
time ever in my collection."
What a moment. That's great. I remember it, but for me, of course, it's still it's DVD, my first
Well,
DVD.
I had laserdiscs, you see, so the disc
Revenge,
didn't
Revenge,
mean anything to me.
yeah. Sorry, not Revenge of the Dino. It was the Five Doctors, the first DVD I got
Oh,
in
right.
2000, and it was the edited version. It was in a different kind of cover, slightly.
Oh, the grey cover with the
Putting that
yeah.
on. I've got that still. I treasure that. And then Dune, I got that because that's one of my favorite films. It was like suddenly I wasn't interested in VHS anymore. I suddenly thought, now it's funny how you change, but I
Yeah, and
have
I have
loads.
like I said, I have the buffer of laserdisc, so I went VHS laserdisc
Yeah,
DVD. You see, so
yeah.
I can understand your excitement of that.
It
Yeah,
was a leap, big, massive leap. It
that's
was.
vinyl. That's vinyl
Yeah.
to CD for you, really, isn't it?
And I think it was because of the quality of VHS tapes in the late 90s were absolutely awful, shoddy to say the least. I'd buy copies of Buffy. I've said it before. I'd buy Buffy the Vampire Slayer, bring them home, all excited, put it in, and it was all.
Well, I've got a counter argument there, because if you ever subscribe to a person called Techmoan,
yeah,
right, who I mention a lot in my blog,
yeah,
right, there was high def tapes.
was
It's
there?
just we never had a high def video recorder
Yeah,
in our
well, you couldn't buy
we had a
yeah,
VHS recorder that had 12 heads, but it
yeah,
didn't play high def. It still was the
yeah,
normal um,
yeah,
picture lines, right? Laserdisc gave you a true analog signal and slightly higher, but
yeah,
nothing by much. DVD's pure digital.
yeah,
So what I'm trying to say is you're then coming out at a time where TVs are now liquid crystal displays.
yeah.
They're not CRT monitors anymore.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
Anyway,
of course
let's,
you
we could go on for hours.
so now things are measured in pixels and not measured in inches anymore.
Pixel, yes, yeah. I stop at Blu-ray not very often. I buy 4K unless it's for cheap. Yeah, I can understand that. I look at offers on 4K. If I see offers, I get excited then.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I'll
get
get
excited.
Yeah, I'll get excited then. People say, "Are you excited by such and such a release?" Sadly, I don't get as excited as much. No, it's me. Yes, I must put something in tea or something. I don't know. Blu-ray is generally good enough for me. Just a few 4K. Yeah, Tony, I understand that totally. I enjoyed the Civil War scenes, this view, in good, bad, ugly, but I do enjoy history.
I knew I was going to get some flack. I didn't mean to cause that. I'm sorry, but I'm going to shut up now because I did give my counter argument to that. So.
But yes, let's face it, history. I'm with you, Tony. I'm the more older I get, the more I started at history when I was about 5 or 6 years. Well, Zulu is history, and everything goes from that. But anyway, that's another story. Agree, Tony. Richard Brown. That's about.
Hey, I've lost 2 subscribers already. Look,
no, I'm sure. Don't worry, you are. We've probably not got many people. We've got people watching.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how many. Yep, Sylvester McCoy, not the other one. Yes, that's it. Yeah, yeah, good stuff. I think that might be about the Lord of the Rings. Do you think? I would say that.
Yeah. Because we were debating Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, weren't we?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I would say what you would want a black and white movie to be on Blu-ray. What movie would it be?
If you were to choose a black and white film to be put on Blu-ray, what would it be?
Oh, crikey.
I've got 4K Blu-ray. I've got 4K black and white films.
Yeah, so. I can imagine. You've got Elephant Man. You've probably got Casablanca.
Yeah.
And I was going to say Wizard of Oz because it's partly black and white.
That's color, isn't
it? Yeah. Even though it's color. And you might have Citizen Kane.
That's this year, I think, 4K. But yes, I do think I've got it on. I do think I've got it on Blu-ray, but it's a 4K pressing this year, I think.
I want a release of my favorite Bogart film hasn't come out yet on 4K.
Some Like It Hot is black and white. I've got that as well in 4K.
Oh, I want The Big Sleep.
Oh, The Apartment's this year. The Apartment is this year. Another Billy Wilder. Another Billy Wilder.
So a black and white movie to be on Blu-ray, Big Sleep already. I'm trying to think. DVD.
Oh, and of course, there's It's a Wonderful Life is Coppola.
Yeah. No, but ones that are perhaps on DVD that haven't got a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've told you about Laurel and Hardy, but those are started to come out on Blu-ray now. I'm trying to think. I'd like to see some more Bette Midler ones, probably Voyager and
maybe maybe I won't know what they are. Maybe there's some old science fiction 50s films that haven't made it onto Blu-ray yet.
The Day
I
the Earth
don't
Stood
know.
Still's been done.
Yeah, well, a
Not
lot
of
more out, haven't there?
not of this earth. That's been
Yeah,
done.
the old classic ones have. I wonder if there's any bit more obscure. Yeah, and of course Brighton Rock, which I just reviewed. Plug. Um, uh,
That's
is
Atom Brew,
in
isn't it?
Blu-ray. That's on Blu-ray. That needs a 4K. What a film,
Yeah.
anyhow. I better not go on about that. I could go on for another hour. But
You better go to the next. While you're thinking, you better start moving through the questions again. You know.
Yeah. Let's.
Oh, look, there's my names come up now. Look.
No, how come?
Because you took the text off of the questions, so our names come up.
Oh.
When you show the next thing, the next comment, the names will disappear.
You've just now I know what to do then. So all I do is just click this. Yeah.
So when you show the next comment, our names will disappear again.
Right. Right now. Oh God, I've got lots. Yeah, Sylvester McCoy. Here we are. I just saw Magpie. So, yes, Magpie. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Thank you. I've discovered something. This is how I like to discover things accidentally. Yeah. Tony York, Mick Roberts, and that's it with the he was like, "Hey man, yeah, hey, yeah." He thought
I just remember the tune.
Yeah, wonderful. And then Brian May's brother. Yes,
yeah.
Brian May's brother. Coogan's Bluff film became McLeod.
The TV series is McLeod. Coogan's Bluff is the film.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. We used to watch that. There was one of them TV series that you watched every week with Columbo.
And it went on the same slot as Starsky and Hutch, if I remember rightly. It's on the BBC at 9:25 after the news on a Friday or something.
I used to laugh at Frank Cannon because he's such a fat bloke and he was running after these people and he couldn't do it. It was so funny. He was a private investigator. He wanted Frank Cannon. Really, never knew that, Richard. Oh, right. We need a Yorkshire doctor, possibly a female one for a change.
Somebody taking a piss there.
Better of you there.
Yeah, we need a Cockney doctor.
Yeah, all right, mate. You know what I mean? Dead 7 is the only zombie western I remember seeing. 2016, straight to DV release. It wasn't great. That's Richard who said that.
I can't think of any zombie westerns, so that's really good to know. Because
there's a topic for everybody. Homework. Let's have some homework. Give me some research on zombie westerns. The TV show It Ain't Our Fault, Mum. A lot of that would be written out. They wouldn't have the darkened white man.
Yeah, the makeup that they had to put on for that. Yeah.
It's still very funny, lovely boy, and all that. You know, wonderful series. Again, that's something we all sat round and watched. And as my dad would say, "Hey, this is a good laugh." Yep, and we'd all laugh. Everybody
whispering grass.
Oh God, hey, you have to be careful about that nowadays. Oh dear. Yes. Some great lines in Ain't Our Fault, Mum. Lovely boy, and la-di-da gonna Graham. I guess they'll be edited now. Yeah. La-di-da gonna Graham. Yeah. And Gunnar Parkin, he thought was his son, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he thought was his son, yeah. Right. There's loads. Bloody heck, how about get me going here? Tony York. I won't be surprised if they edit it out on Blu-ray if it's released. Well, we thought that, but apparently the Young Ones hasn't been edited out, has it? And that had some certain scenes that might have been edited out. Interesting. My late dad let me stay up at night as Star Trek was on late night TV when I was a kid. Was
Yeah,
it? I
depending on
can't-
the era that it was when it was first shown, because I think it was a 1966 show, but Britain didn't
It
get it
was.
until 68 or something.
Yeah, it
Something
was. We got.
stupid
I
like that.
remember because it was on a Monday. I had a lot of problems with my mum watching blooming Opportunity Knocks, which I hated, and blooming Coronation Street, which I hated at the
Huey
time.
Green, bloody
And I
hell!
was saying, I remember saying to her, "Oh, come on, don't you like Captain Kirk?" And she'd say, "Oh, he is handsome, but Coronation Street's on." I said, "But yeah." So I had to end up watching it on a Saturday, I think. In the end, a lot of Star Trek because and they did repeat it.
They take the piss out of Shatner an awful lot, but
Yeah,
to be quite honest, I do think he's actually quite a good dramatic actor. It's just that
yeah,
he does have a weird way of pronouncing
yeah,
things. I have to do that. It's like Spock, Spock,
yeah, yeah.
and
But
there's something on the wing, something
yeah,
on the
it,
wing,
yeah,
like
but
this. That's how he
yeah,
talks. It's like weird.
but it somehow it works, doesn't it? It doesn't matter. Well, I know a lot of people say, well, who don't like Star Trek would probably think it was a load of rubbish, but it works well. It works well. And I think the thing that attracted me to Star Trek, even though that's why I won't repeat the story about when I first saw the Star Trek, the motion picture, why it was
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
big deal, is because I saw it in black and white. Even in black and white, it looked something different. I know that was hard to
Have you
say.
seen the deluxe edition packaging for Star Trek the motion picture? Have you seen the actual packaging?
Is that the chocolate box one? I call
It's
it. I
white,
haven't
yeah,
got that.
it's
Yeah,
cardboard
I
one.
have seen that. I did. I decided I was happy with. There's a 4K they released an extended one.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
one I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
But
I
it
got
came
that
but it
one.
came but it came in a cardboard box
Yeah,
like
I didn't
this.
get that one. Yeah, I got a more
Gorgeous. I've got
standard
it over there.
version. Yeah, I know. I saw it. I would have gone for it. I nearly did, but because it is.
You try getting that now.
Yeah, I can imagine. But that's another story about that film because it's an important film to me, and
Well,
it is to
you'll be
you, isn't
glad to
it?
know that Denny and I are going to be talking about that very soon.
All
The
right.
motion
Well,
picture.
I saw it. I was there when it was released. Put that in your pipe. Yes.
I saw it at the cinema.
I saw
I remember listening to Ilea's theme before the
it.
curtains even opening.
Yeah, but it's just such a special film to me. I think it was
Yeah,
because of the fact you got an audience reaction. I've not
yeah.
noticed that in every film. You didn't notice, but the gas, and they were all Trekkies. Everybody was a Trekkie, and it was just an amazing. Anyway, so I remember recording original Star Trek episodes onto VHS from BBC Two broadcasting.
Yeah.
I did it with Next Generation.
They
A
had
lot with Next
they
Generation.
had this special showing of old stuff at
Yeah,
6 o'clock on
6
BBC
p.m.
Two.
It was. You're right.
On a Friday at 6 o'clock, it'd be
Yeah.
Captain Scarlet, or it'd be
Yeah,
The
that's
Prisoner,
right.
or it'd be
Yeah,
Randall and Hopkirk. Wednesdays it would be Star Trek or something,
yeah,
similar. They did them at two different. It almost became a religion because you always remembered on Channel 4 that you had 9 o'clock Father Ted, and then you'd have something
yeah,
like Cheers at 9:30, and then it'd be Drop the Dead Donkey at 10 o'clock. What I'm saying is that Channel 4 survived knowing that was the comedy 2 hours. It was known as the 9 till, it was
yeah,
the nine
yes,
till the end of till
yeah,
11 o'clock comedy slot.
yeah,
BBC Two came the rerun slot.
yeah,
Everything nostalgia was in that slot.
yeah. It was.
and it was The Prisoner and anything
I
else they
used
could
to.
throw in it.
I used to set the video because I was working and I had to get back from Leicester over here on the train. And if train was late, I was cross. But I always set it up, and I didn't trust my wife to set it up. I said, "You're not setting it up because I might miss it." And we'll wait. I cannot miss this Star Trek. And I did collect them all. I did manage. I think one episode I missed because something had gone wrong on tape, and I was furious. Yeah,
Was she a Star Trek fan? Your wife?
No. She was a
I
doctor.
just
She
want, I
liked
just
Doctor
wondered,
Who.
I just wondered what her take was of Nichelle Nichols. That was all because
Oh yeah, yeah, she um, yeah, she saw how important she was.
yeah,
To
that's
herself.
good
She knew
because I
all
mean,
that. Yeah, yeah.
obviously we all know
And
how
she knew that
iconic
I
she
fancied her.
is.
She used to joke and say, "Oh, you fancy her, don't you?" More than As-
That skirt couldn't get any shorter, could it? Or you'd be happy.
and
Yeah,
then
I can imagine the
Pam Grier
conversation. Yeah.
might just pop into conversation as well. Yeah. But to be fair, she said all her boyfriends that she'd had in the past had all been Doctor Who fans. So I said, because at first she refused to have much to do with it, but eventually I started to work my magic on her.
It's that
Um,
charm, you see. It's that Leeds
yeah,
twinkle.
yeah, it
Right.
worked in the end.
Next one. Next question.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will be here
I
till
just want
12.
incidentally, do you know what her favourite film was?
No, what is
Jaws.
it? Jaws.
Jaws.
Nigel's
Jaws was her
Jaws.
favourite film. It's not mine, but it's up there, but it's not my favourite film. Um, I do love Jaws,
I
but
don't think you could. I don't think anybody could turn around and talk about the lack of quality in that film. It
yeah,
is quintessentially
it's
a
cinema.
70s film. It's a
It's
70s
yeah,
film, but
it's
I
yeah,
mean, everything about it is like up in the stratosphere. I mean,
yeah.
it's like they turn around and say it's got the most iconic score, and yet it's got two
Yeah.
notes. Da-da, da-da.
It
That's it. I mean,
sounds silly to say
that's the
this.
score.
It was almost. It's a film that's almost made for cinema. You know,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
films
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
watch are
yeah.
not, and that was a film that was as is, which might be controversial. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You see, I love
Yeah,
Close,
right.
but we won't talk about that today. But Close Encounters of the
Keep
Third.
going. We're going to get there in the end, honestly.
Does anybody enjoy watching Still Game? The ending was upsetting. Oh,
Still game.
what's that? Still Game? I don't know.
It rings a bell, this, and I just don't know
Still
why.
Game.
I don't know what the
You're
context of
probably
that
not
is.
in, but if you still in, can you put a bit more about that down? Or I'll try and.
I just can't remember what the context of that is in, and I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
know.
I know what Still Game is, but it's just not coming
It
to
might
me.
be a kids program that I don't. I'm
Yeah, that's the
absolutely
thing.
not a doubt.
Like
Might not be in our
Dactari or
area.
something. I'll
It might
probably
be
be
something
thinking of
from
the wrong era.
From nineties. I bet it's from nineties
Yeah,
that we don't
possibly.
know. Yeah. I remember in the 60s, this is Charles Duncan, rushing to the corner shop for some pop and crit. Oh, yeah. This is what he's talking about. Then rushing back for Top of the Pops. It was an event. Great times. Yeah. Top of the Pops and Ready, Steady, Go. That came, it did do as well. But of course, we didn't talk about Top of the Pops too much because
Oh,
the
Savile. Yeah,
person was introducing it a lot then.
yeah.
Um, and the BBC, in their stupidity, have lost a lot of great archive performances on Top of the Pops. If you go do some research on Google, you can find often what is missing from the BBC archives in things like Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
And it's frightening, some of the stuff that they lost. Well, they didn't lose it. Well, some they lost, but destroyed.
Well, I heard that although they have destroyed the negatives in that because of that scandal,
yeah,
that they did actually back them up on hard drive before doing so.
I'm sure they have. There is.
It's just they had to show that the physical media had been
Yeah.
destroyed because of the fluor of the actual media.
Well, even
you'd be stupid if you didn't have a computer handy on the side. Say, hey, just quickly do a backup of that for me. Chuck it in the
well,
skip.
I used to record some at BBC for episodes of Top of the Pops because you remember BBC 4 have been showing Top of the Pops for quite a few times.
Every Friday from 7 o'clock. I watch it religiously.
It was going before the Savile scandal emerged.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's quite a bit There's
Well,
even
they used to do Steve Wright bits, didn't they? In there,
yeah.
because Steve Wright. The thing I like about Top of the Pops on BBC Four is that they always do the history of the track
Well,
that they're
that's what I
playing in
love
the
it.
bubble
Yeah.
right at the bottom.
But they transmitted, and I remember it at the time, even before the scandal came out, the famous bit where Savile abuses a poor girl right at the end of the program, and she jumps up,
Yeah.
and you notice that straight away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you thought, what's that? You know,
Used
but now in context,
used this finger
yeah,
there. I can tell you.
it
Yeah.
was awful to think, he was that blatant. Anyhow, that's another story. Is Still Game the comedy with an elderly Scotsman? Now, I've not seen it. If so, I've only seen clips. I think that is. I think there is some sort of Scottish show. I've not seen it. Quite current, I think. I have not seen it, but I've heard it does ring.
It's still ringing bells with me, and
bell.
I just don't know why. I just don't know why. I
Because
can't
it's
think.
like I don't know much Scottish. It's like the Rab Nesbitt stuff and all that. I
Oh,
don't know. I absolutely know nothing about that. And that was going, wasn't it? And then Tony Hawk, that's right. Here we are. Tony Hawk, that's right. It's such a laugh. So there you are. It's a more modern comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Got us on that one, both, I'm
yeah.
afraid.
Yeah, I may vaguely have seen some sort of, probably on YouTube, odd clip or something from it, but that's it. Del, I'm 32. You're right there, detective. And well, I like this Tony. I like 70s and not in my 60s. Yeah, very nearly. Well, yeah.
But didn't I say to you that I'm not in my 60s yet?
Yeah.
I love Crown Court and that, which is the 70s.
Yeah.
I think what you have to think about here is that statement true for everything in the 70s? Because TV and movies, you've got to turn around and say, I'm sorry, but it transcends media broadcast. But if you're saying you prefer the toys of the 70s over the toys of the 80s, of the 80s, sorry, the toys of the 60s compared to the toys of the 70s, then I'd say that yes, you're talking about a totally different thing. Because what I remember about the 70s was things like Evel Knievel and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If you're talking about 60s toys, you're talking about the introduction of Lego, Meccano.
Yeah. And Thunderbirds, original Thunderbirds toys, they were massive at the time.
Corgi, Dinky.
Presents. Yeah. Stingray. I remember getting all those. They were just standard things. It's interesting because the point that you make about what era you were born in and reflects in many ways our taste. And I was thinking when you was talking about your interest in computers and all that.
Oh, 80s early, yeah.
For me, I didn't start learning about computers until probably late 80s when I was at work and the library was starting to move into 21st century.
Because didn't you used to use microfiche?
Yeah, of course. But then there was like online searching for various, but it wasn't called online. They used to do these special magicians.
Because you used to have cartridge and films, and it was a physical photograph and a microfiche, and you would spin it, and it would go through a plate, and you'd see it on
all that. But what I'm saying is, so when I was at your age, we didn't. The most we had in games was probably in pubs, and would be Space Invaders and Pac-Man.
That's 78.
That'd be me, my experience of coming across games, and of course the ping pong business on TV. But
that's Grandstand and Binatone. That was home.
It just looked so boring that nobody was really that interested. We wanted.
Yeah, but you're saying that, but Pong actually was incredibly popular. It was the first time that you could interact with your telly.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way, but you probably saw it in.
From a kid's perspective, it was boring because you needed a friend.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a friend in, you were doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
Space Invaders changed the world.
Yeah.
Because it was you against the aliens.
Yeah, and it was like me sat at this table, and you had a pint there and we were all there and wonderful. But that it's funny because nothing developed for me from that. It was just in the pub. I didn't take it any further. Whereas you being older and also having that interest, the games became quite a big part of your sort of life.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but I had to look. I had to look after my nan, and she used to like going to bingo, and she had tinnitus.
yeah,
So when I went to secondary school, which is so I was what in my 12, 13,
yeah,
14 years, I was taking her to bingo, and
yeah,
when she was sat down at bingo, I was
yeah.
able to go off into town and do my own thing, and then
All
come
right.
back at lunchtime with a
Yeah,
bag of chips for her, and
yeah,
then I'd pick her up again at the end, and we'd drive and we'd get the bus home.
yeah,
So that was the time where I learned about computer stuff the most, about arcade games, because we used to go to the cafe at the bus
yeah.
shelter.
Right. Yeah,
So that's where we used to get frothy milkshakes from.
yeah,
That's where you get your sausage, egg, and beans.
yeah. Did you do
That's
your
where the
pin?
arcade was.
Because sometimes on your channel, on your blog, you mentioned about pinball. Did you do
Yeah, so there was a
pinball
couple
and
of
that as well?
pinballs
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
but the bus shelter was such a luxury place for me, because
yeah.
you walked towards the bus shelter, and the first thing that's front face to you was the newspaper stand with the spinner rack
Oh,
for all your comics.
yes.
It had a
Yeah.
spinner rack
Oh,
with all
yeah.
the American comics and stuff that
Heaven.
came in
That would have been heaven.
by the boat. They came in by
Wow.
the boat. They
Right.
didn't come in by flight. They were
Yeah.
ballast on boats, and the news
Fantastic.
agents sold them.
Yeah.
That's why
Oh,
they've got pets. That's why they got pets on the covers.
yeah. It's a great loss, all those news agents. When I think,
You go round past the news agent, and you're into the cafe. And that's
oh,
where the arcade machines are, frothy
it's
coffee, and all this
brilliant
sort of
for your
stuff.
imagination. Your imagination must have been flooded by all that.
I was 12.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a
Yeah.
bloke over there playing Space Invaders. I
Wow.
got home, and
Yeah.
my friend that lives up the street has got an Atari VCS system, and he's playing Space Invaders at home while I've only got
Wow.
Pong.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can see why you would definitely. Yeah.
His dad works for RC, no, it was KTEL
Yeah.
Records,
Yeah.
and he was the first one in the street that got the Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds double album,
Oh.
because he was a
The
sales
subject.
rep in a record industry. He got 6 months early War of the Worlds double album.
Wow.
I had to ask my dad to beg him to get me a copy.
Wow. Oh, crikey. Oh.
So I'm telling you now, my memory is like, when it comes to that, pin sharp.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Used to watch Crown Court during school holidays. Yeah, I remember it well. Let's see, next one. My mum watched Casualty and Neighbours. Unfortunately, EastEnders too. I had to sit through that. Yeah, well, that's like, well, actually, to be honest, Coronation Street was the nightmare for me. It really was. It was depressing.
Well, when you were watching it, was Ina Sharples, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was
that's
Ina
what I mean.
Sharples and stuff.
The cobbled slum streets almost, and women that were battle axes, and
You know
there's
what?
nothing.
The first time I saw those, I couldn't believe they actually did do houses like that. I thought they were made
Oh
up
yeah.
in films.
Oh, and so I mean, near where I lived.
So
Yeah.
I lived when I lived in Manchester. I lived in a place called Northern Moor, but I first lived in Didsbury, right? And that was a very expensive posh area. But the girl I was going out with, the dad, he took me into Manchester, and he took me past Salford and all this sort of places.
Yeah.
He said, look over to the left there. And I said, wow, them rows of houses. He said, yeah, that's Coronation Street. Basically,
Wow.
it's not the actual set Coronation Street. It's based on these houses that are down there. Everyone is a terraced house with nothing at the back, just a small ginnel that separates them all. They're all made of red brick. They've all got red lead paint that covers them all. They're all the same. And we moved out of there and moved into Didsbury. It was the best thing we ever did. But
Yeah.
these poor sods, they're still there. And
Yeah.
Rusholme is very much a throwback in Manchester. That's where Ramadan is celebrated. You know, it's Curry
Right.
Mile in
Yeah.
Manchester,
Yeah.
Rusholme.
Yeah.
And it's very much where students go, because all of those houses now are rented out to students to go to
Yeah.
Manchester University.
Yeah.
You can
Wow.
buy those houses for like 17,000. You can get a loan to buy a house, not a mortgage. That's the reason why people rented them out. If you've got
Yeah.
money, you could not get a mortgage. You could actually get a loan for 20,000 and buy a house and rent it out.
And
There's
make
nothing
money.
that you could do
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
I've
So
never heard of
anyway,
that.
questions next.
Amazing. Right. Let's see. We have got
Yeah,
that
we've
one.
watched
Next
Casualty.
one. We'll definitely get a 4K of Zulu.
Too right.
Yeah, that Zulu, brilliant. I know Tony's a big Zulu fan. I prefer Zulu score, such a bold, bombastic experience.
So remember, I was telling you that John Barry did that score, and all I said was that it's a great score, but Lawrence of Arabia is, whenever you hear the suite, you think of Rolling Dunes.
Yeah.
If you think of an excerpt from John Barry's Zulu, you don't get the same imagery.
All right. Yep.
So I would say the quintessential score is the Lawrence of Arabia one.
Okay. Right. Was Michael Caine, this is for you, I think, in Espresso Bongo, a Cliff Richard early movie, 1950?
He had a walking part in the 1959 film, but I don't think it was a Cliff Richard film. Not sure though.
Yeah. My mum would know. My mum was a massive, and I mean massive, Cliff Richard film.
I'd have to wiki it myself. Yeah. I'd have to say that.
Yeah. She would. She was really into Cliff Richard, big time. I really like the Doctor Who trailer. I can't wait for May the 11th. That's Time Lord 2023. Well, I hope you. I hope it does live up to some promise. We'll see, you know. And
look, we're all Doctor Who fans. Yeah. We all have our own opinions. Yeah. I've always turned around and said, I won't not be a Doctor Who fan because I don't like this Doctor. I've lived through the lean times.
We have.
It's just I just think it's not written for me anymore. That's all.
It's not for us, but we don't diss it in that sense.
Nah,
even though I do get cross with it. I do get cross with modern Doctor Who, and I've proved it in what I've said. But
I don't need my Doctor to start singing and dancing. As far as I'm concerned,
it's as bad as doing it in.
He's not Fred Astaire.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Star Trek as well doing it. No, thank you.
Yeah. They're starting to do this singing shit and all that.
In what
Strange New Worlds, isn't it?
And they say that is the best of the modern Star Trek. Yeah. Anyway,
it is. It's a good program, but that episode is the worst.
I can't. I'm not doing with it. I'm pretending that didn't happen.
Captain Pike. It's a really good show. Carry on.
Yeah, my favorite Michael Caine movie is The Italian Job. Well, I think most people would put that. Mine would be Get Carter, and
definitely.
I like the one. It's a very different tone film, but I really like it. And my brain has just gone. It's one with Julie Walters in Educating Rita.
Yeah.
It's a really good British film.
Abstinence is getting the words wrong. I mean, there's famous lines all the way through.
Well, it's a great. Anybody who hasn't seen Educating Rita, it's often shown on TV. I think quite a bit. It's a great film. It really is. It's
really hard record to get on vinyl is Educating Rita, and it's got a full synthesizer score.
Wow.
Full synthesizer score. Get it on CD, all of that sort of stuff. Try and find it on vinyl.
Well, there you are. Don't invest in vinyl all the time. At those inflated, ridiculous prices.
Anyway, I've got it on vinyl. I'm all right. I've got it on vinyl. I'm all right. But it's just
that they're not vinyl. The records.
Yeah, they're records. Sorry,
the record.
Yeah,
I'm almost like somebody else we know says that. but I do.
Yeah, it's not a franchise.
I see you've got it. Timothy Dalton. Yeah, we are behind. Let's have a look. Next one. I remember Michael Caine in one of those Edgar Wallace adaptations. Oh my God, Edgar Wallace. Yeah, last week as a gangster, but that would be in the early 60s. Wow. Yeah.
So before Zulu. So it's that 10 years before he was in Zulu then.
Yeah. Edgar Wallace, yeah, that's a memory as well. Timothy Dalton was brilliant in Doctor Who. I really hope he comes back. It would be nice, but
he was like Omega or something. Wasn't
he was good. He was good in it. Yeah, he stood out. He was good. He was a baddie, I think, wasn't he? Wasn't it bad Time Lord?
That's what I mean. He was like I can't remember who he was. He was a high official Time Lord, like Omega was. But I can't remember.
Here we are, John Barry, another Yorkshireman. Ian.
John Barry is just one of my movie score idols. So
what? Now you'll like the next comment as well. Tony, John Barry.
Well, now you're talking.
Morricone, top composers for me. I'll tell you my favorite Ennio Morricone score is. Have you guessed?
What? Once Upon a Time in the West?
No, it's got Robert De Niro in it. The Missionary.
Oh, The Missionary. Yeah.
I could talk about The Missionary a lot, but Missionary is one of my favorite films. And it's one that Robert De Niro doesn't get mentioned a lot in Missionary.
No.
John Barry's score to 1976 version.
King Kong.
King Kong was great. Saw that at the Flicks back in the day. Great memories. Oh, wow. Yeah. Do you know, I think I saw that film.
So heavily advertised. It was on the back cover of every comic book was the twin. It's Jeff Bridges. It was the two towers with Kong on top, because that's where he didn't fall off of the Empire State Building. He fell off of the Twin Towers.
It was a big deal, wasn't it, at the time, that film?
Oh yeah, it was Beauty that
was it the first remake of King Kong?
It was. Wow. When I say remake, it was it's the first remake, but of course Kong had been in Godzilla films. Son of Kong, all of this sort of stuff.
Who was the actress in it? That's what I'm trying to think.
In the 1976
in the remake, in this 76 version. I know, Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange.
Yeah, I knew I'd get it. See, I can remember something.
Oh yeah, because everybody knows Fay Ray and all of that sort of stuff. So I mean, yeah.
Let's see, Tony. Enjoy that King Kong version. It seems to have a lot of detractors, though. Yeah, well,
it's 2.5 hours long. I bought the Steelbook last year.
A lot of people would do. Oh, it's Johnny. Crikey. This guy is a supporter of my channel, American. He's posted some pictures. He posted one with Sam Raimi, I think, at some convention he went to. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's hard to get rid of DVDs and upgrades to new physical media and 4K and Blu-rays. Not every movie has been released on DVD.
That's very true.
4K or Blu-ray. I still miss VHS sometimes to a degree. I think VHS has become the big nostalgic thing, and it has. Has
actually though anybody come out with a comment that says not everything came out on VHS?
Yeah, nobody has.
So at the end of the day, it just follows suit. There's gaps in VHS, there's gaps in DVD, there's gaps in Blu-ray, there's gaps in 4K. What medium hasn't got a gap?
Yeah. The interesting thing about VHS though is not that long ago, relatively, it was not seen in the same light as it is now. There's a big nostalgia thing for VHS, and which is fair enough. I know I'm not into the nostalgia for VHS, but I say that, and then I was thinking, I should have kept my copy of Revenge of the Cybermen.
I've just given my copy of that to Sammy G.
Oh, have you? I don't. If I still had it, I would treasure it, but I didn't. I was a fool. I got rid of them all, but made a bit of money out of it because I'm
having to get rid of mine because I've got no space. And I said to him, I'd rather. I said, I can't get rid of them at car boot sale because they're not even worth 50 pence.
Yeah.
But I do know that that's not true. But it's just I
Yeah.
want them to go to a good home. He
And
wants to keep them because he
loves
likes
it.
the artwork,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just bought himself a new
Yeah.
house. And I
Yeah.
said, "Do you know what? I'd rather send them to you
Yeah.
than I would giving them to a charity shop." So I've
Yeah.
started to send them in freeze to him. So every now and again on Facebook, you'll see a picture that says this week's haul, and he's
Yeah.
always got
And it's
he's
the
always got a
yeah.
couple of Doctor Who's. Those are my
Oh,
tapes I'm sending him.
yeah. It makes the thing is when I see them, I get nostalgic. I'm thinking, yeah, but then I think, no, I did the right thing. I do.
Of
I
course, you
still,
did the
I
right
still did
thing.
the right thing. I did. But I maybe should. It's like I should have kept my copy of Dune, the because that was an early one I got of the Lynch version of Dune. I should have kept that. I had that on VHS. But yeah, I should have kept Revenge of the Cyberman. But there we are. Tony, my mum had a friend who passed away last year. She used to work in the World Trade Center and saw the making of King Kong. Wow. 76. Wow, that is wow, that is amazing. Johnny, that must have been quite an experience. Yeah.
Well, would be.
Yeah. They have colored the 1933 King Kong movie. What do you think? I don't know. I've not seen a colored version of it. Have you seen a colorized version of it?
My opinion of it was why? Why did
Yeah.
you do that?
I haven't seen.
The first question that you have to ask yourself is, why are you doing this? And I can't come up with a reason on why you would colorize a black and white film of this. In the same way as why did you colorize Laurel and Hardy?
Yeah, it's historic for me. I have to look at it. It is in history of film context. And 1933, you do not mess about with a 1933 important historical film, and you do not colorize it. But
I mean, at the end of the day, we've got two versions, and you can choose.
But
the other thing I like about it is we've learned an awful lot since then. So it's nice that they use that film as a test bed.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, you have to ask yourself why King Kong in black and white. You see all of the hair on Kong.
Yeah.
You see the special effects work because black and white hides so many problems that would be shown in that shot. When you colorize it, they come up. It's like when you blow up the special effects in a Star Wars film from 1977 and show it up against the special effects of now. They look ropey, and that's because they were of a period of time. So
my opinion sometimes on that we put far too much emphasis on special effects. Okay, they are ropey and what have you.
If you get into that subject, we would never get to the end of these.
We better not get going. You might see where I'm coming from.
You'll start me off, and it'd be 1 o'clock in the morning.
Redoing all of Doctor Who and saying Doctor Who and lose its. Anyway, I won't go into my Doctor Who and Hammer film as well because I've got a Hammer film triad about why I love Hammer. Yes, Tony, she used to tell me how she saw the actors and the Kong suit. Oh, that is a great memory. Really, that is great.
Wish I had memories like that.
Yeah. For me, King Kong 76, I don't hate it. I find it forgetful.
Yeah.
Also, no dinosaur fight scenes like the original.
If you remember rightly, when Faye, when obviously when
Faye Welder, is it Faye?
Faye Ray.
Faye Ray. That's it.
She was took into the jungle. She had to be protected.
That's
so of course there was big snakes. There was big, whatever. In King Kong 76, he got captured, brought over to New York, and then basically it's just the end on the Twin Towers, as far as I remember, the World Trade Center. Anyway, whatever. There aren't really dinosaur fights, but I don't call them dinosaur. Well, they are dinosaur fights. It's a big lizard.
Yeah.
It's not like he fights a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Stegosaurus.
Yeah.
It's more a big version of a snake or a big version of a lizard.
Do you know, I must watch the original King Kong again.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I must watch it. I may have a copy on DVD. I don't know.
I had it as a box set when it came out
Yeah.
on DVD, and then I upscaled it. I
I
upgraded
must
it to Blu-ray.
definitely on my list, that one. Right. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh,
Huey
hey,
Green.
oh, hello, Jim Jam. Hey, well done. Yeah.
If he's still here.
You'll probably not hear that.
You're still here, Jim Jam.
Don't think you'll be here. But yeah, great to see you. He's network. Just mentioned network to Jim Jam, and he's a massive network collector of all those wonderful releases on network. Tony, I used to love. Oh God, I didn't. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I didn't like Huey Green. I thought he was a bit spooky from the first time I saw him.
And it's been proved. We know the story with we fathered Bob Geldof's wife.
They did a documentary. Didn't they do a drama on Huey Green on the ITV or something?
Horrible, man.
Not long ago.
He was horrible, and I didn't like him. I didn't trust him. I just hate that swarminess. It's bad memories. And also, I say, Mom, why are we watching this rubbish? I couldn't stand it. It was a nightmare.
New Faces was probably better than Opportunity.
But anything would have been. Tony Hawk, and he also did some quiz shows as well.
Yeah. Well, basically, he was off of Opportunity Knocks, and there was nothing else. There was nowhere for him to go, was there?
Awful quiz shows. Somewhere people went inside a booth and put. I don't. I've forgotten what it was. Double Your Money or something like that. It was called. It was awful again. Why we were watching that, I do not know. Yeah. Jim Jam movies on TV. Evening, Tony. Yeah. Physical Media Life. I love William Shatner. He was a true ladies' man on Star Trek. He was. He was Mr. Star Trek. But aren't all the original cast great? He was about now. He's about 90, I think. He's still.
He's 90. I think he's 93. Actually,
he's how what?
I think he's 93. Actually,
wow, 93. Yeah, wow.
And went into space last year at 92. That's why I think he's 93, because I'm pretty sure I heard
he must be the oldest
man of 92 goes into space, and then when I read further, it was William Shatner that went up. I went, bloody hell!
I know. Tony, I think he's that age. Tony, I think he's that age. Would love to meet Shatner one day. I'm afraid it would be nice to meet him, but he'd charge you a hell of a lot of money. He's like that now, unfortunately. Apparently, he's.
I've always loved that saying that he's got. It says, "It's Shatner's world. We're just allowed to live in it."
Oh yeah, I've heard that phrase. Yeah, and of course, he's the first person who came out with that phrase that we often hear now: "Get a life."
Get a life. Oh yeah, because that was a Saturday Night Live skit, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that has gone into popular culture. I mean, I
always remember that skit. It's like, Captain, yeah, can I ask you a question? Yeah, of course. What is it? He said, in episode 15, around about 30 seconds into it, you were putting in the combination of your safe. What was the number?
That's right. Actually, it's kind of true as well. It may have been taking the piss, but if you've ever been on some forums and things, it's not far off the mark.
That's where those Shatner mannerisms. He said it was just a TV show. It's just a TV show. Because he does that fast and slow with his voice. It's amazing, really.
He says he went into space in real life not too long ago.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah. Time check. 23:24.
20 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago.
Oh, we're getting a bit nearer then. I'll try and speed up a bit. Tony Hawk, I heard about the Shatner. That Shatner deserved it, being a quality Starfleet. Yeah. Well, he is. Yeah, there's no denying that at all. Guys and gals, another great Yorkshireman. Not. Yes, we won't talk about it. Yes, rather not. When I worked in the library in the 80s, we got a computer system, this is more for you, called ALS. It was useless, forever breaking down. Now, I've not heard of that. Have you heard of that?
Well, I wouldn't have heard of it because it's a computer system. In other words, it's
Oh,
the
right.
software that
Okay.
the
Yeah.
library was using.
Right. Yeah. There
It's
was
not
a
like
lot of
it's not. It's not telling me anything like it was a
Yeah.
Fujitsu or a Dell
Yeah.
or a. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just a computer
As I
system.
remember, when we first introduced a system into our library, they kept changing them after a few years. It was like trying to find the right one which suited the library because there was a lot of problems, as I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah. Remember the BBC horror double bills back in the 70s and 80s? Some of my fondest childhood memories. This is Richard. Theatre of Blood, yeah. Vault and Hound of Dracula. Legend of the Werewolf. Oh, yes. Of course, who can... I remember, of course.
I was looking the other day. You can actually get Zoltan Hound of Dracula on Blu-ray. I didn't even know that was out.
Oh, really?
And last night I watched David Niven play Dracula in Vampira.
Yes, I remember that one. Oh,
Vampira! Bloody
wow,
hell!
I know.
He's blackened up at the end because his wife bit him, who was coloured, and he's at Heathrow Airport with black bloody shoe polish all over his face.
Just laugh, but you can't help but laugh.
How'd you get away with that?
You couldn't. Yeah. Oh dear. Oh yeah. Yeah. Don't mention black and white minstrels. I couldn't stand them.
Oh yeah.
No,
yeah.
even if it's
Lenny Henry. Lenny Henry was in those.
I was glad that they got rid of the buggers. They were on Saturday night, and they drained all life out of me. They were bloody awful.
I like Jolson, but I don't need to have it shoved down my throat all the time. In fact, two of my favourite films is Jolson and Jolson Sings Again. You know, the Jolson story.
Well, it's a different thing.
Showing Jolson go to the mosque and sing that song.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous song he sings.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called. Something about the Wabash.
Oh. God, I haven't seen that film for years.
Banks of the Wabash.
Oh, wow.
That's what the song's called.
I bet that's
apparently it's the national theme of not Canada. It's the national theme of is it Ohio?
Oh,
is the Banks of the Wabash by the Banks of the Wabash. Oh, for God's sake!
Oh, that's going back. Yeah,
Vaudeville anyway.
Let's go to this one. My mum and dad loved watching black and white minstrels. I had to sit through it. Yeah, great. Well done, Tony. I know your pain. I really do know your pain. It was bloody awful. Let's put it down. It really was. I can't see anything. Even if they hadn't have been blacked up or what have you, it was still awful. You can't hide the fact. And people say, oh, the black and white means. No, it was bloody awful. It was a nightmare for everybody. I remember my mum and dad even going to see it live. Actually, that is the last comment.
Wow.
I think that is the last comment. Wow.
At 3 hours 32 minutes.
Well, honestly, thank you, Tony, and thank you everyone that's sat here and actually enjoyed me going on about mentioning the black and white minstrels. I can't believe it. We've actually got to the end. People did stay. I thought we were just talking to ourselves. Actually, it may be. I don't know if this. So there's a number 7 next to an I. Is that how many people are watching?
I don't know because I haven't got you. Remember, you've got a different front end to me because I've only got your link to it.
It's got an I and it's got a 7. Oh yeah, it's got live viewers. We've got 7 people. Well, thank you, all you 7 people.
Thank you.
You're still watching here. We probably it's gone up to 8. Yeah, it's gone up to 8. We're still here.
Encore.
Oh, here we are. Look, good morning and thanks. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Tony.
it's just turned midnight.
Yeah, we've done. It's been good. If I'd have had more viewers, I'd probably be in middle morning. But I am to go to work in the same as you lot.
Yeah.
Oh, but I really enjoyed it, and
Yeah. Next week, it's this episode is brought to you by the letters A, X, and by the number 1. It is. Just so you know.
What I need to do is get this better organized, or try to, and so that we can have it a bit. Yeah, I mean, I can still do it because I can't give. I don't know how to do publicity and all that to get this. And it probably
learn it every day is a learning day, Ian. That's all you got to remember.
It'll say start at 8:00. Mind you, some of them other streams don't start at when they say, do they?
Do they? Yeah. Remember, if my friend Ryan and his watch-alongs, I mean, they start off at 8:25, and we advertise at 8. It's like we're 20.
So I didn't worry too much. Oh dear. Really, thank you for
I've had a blast, Ian. I can't believe that was 3.5 hours. It seems like an hour to me.
Yeah, I've loved it.
That's the trouble. That's the trouble with doing these sort of things. I just go, really?
Yeah.
I've just done half a day's work, and I didn't even, because 3.5 hours is my morning at work. It's like, hey.
Do you know what I like about these things is that something happens, and I always think, wow, I didn't know that, or I learned something, or it sets off memories. It's like the sweet shops. I was just thinking, you could do nearly a whole thing on sweets, the smells. Newsagents. My argument that newsagents used to be better in the olden days. They were fantastic places. They were like treasure places.
Well, I told you about the kiosk at the bus shelter.
Yeah, I know. Wow. But they were. I mean, we can't get. Anyway, sorry, I think I better go save these for another thing.
Yeah, well, you're trying to go for 4 hours now. Well, yeah.
So if I go off, we'll still be able to talk, will we?
At the top, Ian, it's got stop the recording. Then when you press that, it'll still say, "Are you sure you want to stop?" And then when you do that, we'll be left behind, and the thing will.
So when I press,
I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Just before, because Ian's got to do that. Ian's got to say goodbye. So I'm going to say thank you so much. And if you have subscribed, I really am eternally.
Look, it says there, but we'll put something down. I'll try and put something down. So, and hopefully it will get you to that 200.
Then wouldn't that be such a pleasure? That would be for me, I tell you.
Yeah, it's been grand. It really has. Thank you for coming here. And as I always say at the end of my videos, I'll see thee again.